The topic of the 20th episode today is, how can the oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra, not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind, be applied to the states of bliss, luminosity, and no thought? We already mentioned in the 17th, 18th, and 19th episodes that a Dharma believer once sent me an email. It mentioned that the Kargyupa of the Tibetan Buddhism believes that there should be 4 stages for a Dharma practitioner. Firstly, one must carefully observe the precepts, and then there is no need for one to observe the precepts anymore. All one's body, speech, and mind will naturally conform to the path, that is, conform to the Buddhist holy Dharma without violating the precepts. But it is said that the next stage is crazy wisdom. That is, one will become crazy, but with a lot of wisdom. Only then can one attain Buddhahood in the end. It is said, many people told her this, that is, she also knew it by hearsay only, that crazy wisdom is the stage prior to accomplishing the ultimate enlightenment in esoteric Buddhism. There are now many books on this kind of theory published out there, all of which are wrong. Is this right or wrong? What is the justification for right or wrong? In fact, I already explained it in lectures 17, 18, and 19, in which I mentioned bliss, luminosity, and no thought, the states that I think must be dealt with very carefully. But how do we deal with them? The solution is to apply the oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra. So, today's lecture will explain how we should face bliss, luminosity, and no thought, the states obtained from our diligent Dharma practices. Let us first take a look. According to the new translation of the Essential Uncommon Teachings of Mahamudra, compiled by Guru Daba Middenmingda Ligen, at all times, i.e., 24 hours, every minute and every second, one must visualize one's Guru seating over the top of one's head. Some Dharma practices will even involve visualizing the Guru being integrated into one's body without abandoning or leaving them. If one abides as such, if one can do this, one will generate bliss, luminosity, and no thought. But I would like to remind you all that this is not the only way. It will just facilitate your interconnection with your Guru. Suppose you and your Guru match well and trust each other, and they have become a part of your own intrinsic nature. If you do this, you will speed up your Dharma practice, and it will be easy for you to come up with the states of bliss, luminosity, and no thought. But if bliss surges up, that is, if it becomes fervent, and you are very obsessed with it, or unable to deal with it, you will go crazy and become insane. If one abides in bliss, one will be born in the desire realm. Even if you do not go mad, you will also be in trouble if you are attached to bliss. You will be reborn in the desire realm. That is, you cannot liberate yourself from the cycle of karmic existence. If one abides in luminosity, that is, if that kind of luminosity becomes blazing, one will be born in the form realm. The heavens of the form realm are actually very difficult to go to. It is not easy to get there. Does it necessarily mean good if one can be reborn there? No, it does not. Instead, you are destined to fall into lower rebirths in the future once your virtuous merits are depleted. Because a great deal of virtuous merits will be used up while being in the form realm. When one is enjoying too much happiness, it will consume a lot of one's virtuous merits. To you, it is a good thing initially. You will be very happy. But in the later period, it is as if you have won the lottery and have a lot of money. But you have then run out of money because of your indulgence in pleasure. In the end, there will be no money at all. This is a matter of course. So, you will have actually planted a miserable cause for your future. If one abides in no thought, one will be born in the formless realm. This is what we are going to explain in this session. So, what will happen? How miserable will it be? Could it be even worse than reborn in the form realm? This will be explained shortly. If none of these 3 is adopted or held onto. If you are well balanced on all these 3 things without any attachment, it is the true path. Only then is it the real path for your Dharma practice. These advanced level realizing and sensing are named bliss, luminosity, and no thought. Bliss was already explained in the 17th and 18th episodes of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhisattva series. Luminosity was explained in the 19th episode of the same series. No thought will be explained in today's session. What is the definition of so-called no thought when these realizing and sensing arise? What is the no thought referred to? Guru Rinpoche talked about it very clearly in the Advice from the Lotus Born, a collection of Padmambhava's advice to the Dakini Yeshe Tsogyal and other close disciples. But do people know how to interpret it, considering there are only a few sentences without much detailed explanation? However, here is already the most explanation you can find. I will quote and explain it to you. What is called the no thought? This is Guru Rinpoche's explanation. Guru Rinpoche states that when your mental consciousness is free from conceptual thinking, it is called no thought, or non-thought. What does it mean by the mental consciousness that is free from conceptual thinking? It is not using a lot of defining concepts to define a thing and then, based on this definition, to derive many personal interpretations and ideas to be applied to some objects. This is called conceptual thinking. If you can stay away from such conceptual thinking, it is called no thought. The Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch states, if one's mind is untainted by all scenes, it is called no thought. What does it mean? It is interpreted as not to develop one's mind upon encountering any scene. In other words, regardless of what state, phenomenon, or scene you see, no single thought will arise from it. Neither will any mind be attached to a certain scene. For example, I have come up with a thought towards a certain scene, and I want to study it, or I have some views about it. It says that there should be none of these. For any scene, your mind should not develop any attachment to it, which is called being tainted. There will be no attachment, not even a little bit. There is no thought being attached to the mind. Nor will any mind, that is, thought arise. Then, this is called no thought. Doesn't the second oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra state, not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind? Note that the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch refers to no thought, as not to develop one's mind, while the Diamond Sutra states the oral pith instruction of Dharma practice is to develop one's mind. As explained before, the mind here refers to a kind of realizing and knowing, which has many levels. What level of realizing and knowing can be considered qualified and meet the Diamond Sutra requirements? This will be explained shortly. But you can see that one states not to develop one's mind, while the other requires one to develop one's mind. Hence, you will clearly know that the so-called no thought is not a correct Dharma practice method. Right? So, this no thought or non-thought are in fact biased. It also tells that if the mental consciousness is free from conceptual thinking, without the existence of realizing and knowing, it is called no thought, or non-thought. It is an incorrect Dharma practice, which will cause the practitioner to enter a state of continuing reincarnation. It turns out that one has to continue reincarnating despite such diligent cultivation. So, how can we truly be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence? The fact is that there only needs one little deviation, only a little, in your mind or Dharma practice program, even if you have already practiced the holy Dharma to a very high level, to destroy all of your previous accomplishments in Dharma practice. All of your previous efforts will be lost, and all your virtuous merits will be exhausted, too. Will it be so serious? Yes, it will. You will know how serious it is later in the lecture. It only takes a little deviation, not a significant one. It is not that you are not hardworking enough, nor that you have never tried your best to eliminate all difficulties in your Dharma practice. You have already done whatever you can do to practice the holy Dharma. But everything is in vain since your guru has misguided you a little bit, or you have misunderstood it a little bit yourself. In the end, it is all gone. Let us take a look at what Guru Rinpoche said. No thought is divided into 3 categories. The first category, no virtuous thought, means free from clinging to the meditator and meditation object. What is it? What are virtuous thoughts? If we use Guru Rinpoche's definition, for example, when we practice some rituals and Dharma methods, we need to practice some methods that connect with the virtuous magnetic fields. I will also teach you the same. Suppose you do not know how to visualize without forms or appearances. That is, you do not know how to visualize emptiness, but only those with forms or appearances in the hope that you can pick up your Dharma practice when you get to a Buddha's Pure Land in the future, rather than continuing to suffer here. Take this scenario, for example. As such, esoteric Buddhism will teach you to visualize a deity. Which deity do you like best? If you like Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, you should visualize yourself as Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. You also need to visualize the meditation object in front of you. If you have yet to be able to visualize yourself as Avalokiteshvara, you should at least visualize that there is a Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara in front of you to protect you. You need to visualize not only this way, but also what her pure land is like, and how pure and peaceful it is. These are virtuous magnetic fields, and we must connect with them. These are called the meditator, that is, the Dharma practitioner, whereas the object they visualize is called the meditation object, which could be an object in a dualistic or multiplistic state. Suppose you can be free from this kind of clinging, which means you are no longer attached to it, or even stop visualizing it. You stay away from all these things and no longer visualize any of these, such as visualizing yourself as a deity and connecting with virtuous magnetic fields. You are no longer bothered about all these. Suppose you can stay away from this virtuous thought, which are some good things that can help you be liberated from samsara. You stay away from this kind of virtuous thought, and even stop visualizing it. The second category is no evil thought. You also stay away from evil thoughts. It means interrupting the flow of gross and subtle conceptual thinking. Based on Guru Rinpoche's definition, it does not refer to what you say, doing good things and refraining from doing evil things, such as killing people, setting fires, stealing, kidnapping, robbing, and cheating. It should not be interpreted this way. So, what does evil mean here? And what is considered virtuous? Only those things that can help you be liberated from samsara are called virtuous. If you connect with virtuous magnetic fields, you have a chance to pull it off. At least, you can get away from some of the filthy places in this painful desire realm first. This is what virtuous thought means. An evil thought refers to any other thought that has nothing to do with connecting with these virtuous magnetic fields that can help you get to good places. It is called gross. Even if it is not gross, for it is already being visualized in a very subtle way, it is also called evil as long as it has nothing to do with something that connects you with virtuous magnetic fields. In other words, it is called evil as long as it is not beneficial to you. Such thoughts are useless. You must stay away from these evil thoughts which, of course, include those wicked things such as violating the precepts, murder, arson, etc. The third category is no neutral thought. What is no neutral thought? Guru Rinpoche explains it as the recognition of the natural face of awareness as being locationless. How should you understand it? What is it? To explain this sentence and what Guru Rinpoche meant, one must first know what neutral Sanskrit, avikta, Pali, avikata, means. Right? What is avikta? It means indeterminate or undefinable, that is, the inability to determine or define whether this thing, this thought, this scene, or this situation is virtuous or evil. It cannot be distinguished. In the Buddhism of the early Buddhist schools, also called Nikaya Buddhism. Nikyas refer to those divisions of Hinayana that were split out individually. To explain what neutral means from the Hinayana perspective, you must first know that the Māsgika Pali, Masagika, literally means the great community school of Hinayana divides all Dharma into only two major categories, virtuous or evil. There are only these two characteristics, without including the neutral category. There are only two kinds, which are simple and easy to remember. On the other hand, the Sthaviravda Pali, Theravada, literally means teaching of the elders. School advocates that, in addition to virtuous and evil, there should be some things of indeterminate nature, which are referred to as neutral. The Sthaviravda school classifies all things into three types of characters: virtuous, evil, and neutral, that is, undefinable or indeterminate. There are three categories in total. Moreover, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni once raised a set of general philosophical questions, to which he referred as indeterminate or unanswerable questions. That is, neither do they have a correct answer, nor are they beneficial to you. These questions may haunt you for many lifetimes, and you will never get an answer. Yet you are fond of listening to and studying these philosophies that will never lead to any results. It is impossible to understand and explain these questions with your wisdom level, but you insist on indulging in them. The result is that you will never find the correct answer, and there is no benefit to you at all. Therefore, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni would not answer any disciples who asked him these similar questions. He felt that it was of no good answering you, because if he did answer you, it would only be a waste of his time as well as yours. Because you would not understand it. You have not reached the Buddha's level yet. Your level is limited, so you will not understand it. But after listening to Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's explanation, you would like to explore even more deeply in the hope of solving them. So you would waste your Dharma practice time. It is important for you to know that life is very short, and you will die very soon. Why indulge in such meaningless matters? So, what was the easiest way for Lord Buddha Shakyamuni to deal with these questions? Not answering them. He would not answer you. That is why sometimes, when a disciple writes to ask me questions, I only reply when I feel it is urgent, or I cannot help them without explaining. When it comes to some indeterminate questions, I will also, like Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, choose not to answer. As you know, I am very busy. I prefer to use most of my energy correctly on helping sentient beings. I really have no extra time to answer these questions. The reason for not answering them is not that I lack compassion, but to help this person wisely. Because after answering them, it might get them into big trouble. They may be even more puzzled, for they simply do not understand your explanation. It may cost them more time in some wrong places. So, there must be a reason for not answering them, and this reason must be very balanced. It is to help you, not being selfish, or wanting to sleep a bit more. It is not for this reason. In Chinese Buddhism, there is a reference to 14 unanswerable, or indeterminate, questions, Sanskrit, Aviktavastu, Pali, Avikatavastu, and there are also 16 unanswerable, or indeterminate, questions. In the Pali Tripitaka, there are 10 unanswerable, or indeterminate, questions. Let us give an example to illustrate what Aviktavastu means. Let us explain the 10 unanswerable, or indeterminate, questions. The theory of Theravada Buddhism mentions the 10 unanswerable, or indeterminate, questions. What would they be like if interpreted in modern language? The first avikta, or indeterminate question, is the world eternal? Will this world last forever and never change? Does it always exist? In fact, the Lord Buddha already said long ago that it would be destroyed. But you disagree. I don't think so. Each time we take rebirth, we will always see a world that exists, or we may encounter the spiritual realm. We might see the realm of heaven at this moment when we die, and then we might not know where we will go at the next moment. Nevertheless, we will always see things. Don't you think that the world is always there? At least I will instantly appear in the spiritual realm after I die. The second avicta, or indeterminate question, is the world not eternal? According to Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's explanation, this world will be destroyed, and it has no intrinsic nature. With the interweaving of the minds of sentient beings, different worlds will be manifested. For those sentient beings, they feel the world does exist. But the fact is that it is something in a dualistic or multiplistic state, a scene projected by sentient beings who consider it to be real. In fact, it does not exist. But when you have not reached this level, you will feel that it does exist. Then you will be arguing all day as to whether the world exists or does not exist. Even though Lord Buddha Shakyamuni told you it did not actually exist, you simply could not understand it. That is because you have not reached this level. You feel like it exists, but it also seems not to exist. Thinking over and over again, you wish to get to the bottom of this question, but it will not help you be liberated from samsara at all. Are you not wasting your time? So, the Lord Buddha felt that these philosophical matters are no good. The third avicta, or indeterminate question, is the world finite? Is there an end to this world? Will there be an end to it after all? You should know that Lord Buddha Shakyamuni already said, everything comes from the mind. The mind can create anything it wants, so it is infinite. Infinite means that the worlds that are created must be endless. There will be no boundaries. But you would argue, how can there be no boundaries? It is just because I have not studied it through. There will always be an end. So, under constant debate, the fourth avicta, or indeterminate question, arises, is the world infinite? Based on your explanation, there will be constant arguments. Would the question of whether this world is infinite or not help you restore your mind to the state of oneness, an endless state? No, it would not. So, there is no benefit looking into these things. So, it is also classified as the avicta. Do not research it, because these are not things that can help you by prescribing the right medicine for the right disease. The fifth avicta, or indeterminate question, is the soul life force the same as the body, the self? People tend to think that one's soul, or life force, belongs to oneself. When one dies, one's mental consciousness, or mind will take rebirth. It is logical to think that the soul, or life force, should be with oneself, and they are the same thing. But Lord Buddha Shakyamuni already said that the mind changes constantly. The mind in this second is different from the last. Are your life force and self the same? In fact, they are not the same entity. So, another question arises. The sixth avicta, or indeterminate question, is the soul life force different from the body, the self? Are they not the same entity? It seems to be the same mental consciousness, which manifests as different things. As a result, different life forces appear. So, you toss the question around and argue about it again and again. In fact, despite the constant debate, what we are actually talking about is that if you can practice the holy Dharma successfully and well to restore yourself to the state of oneness, there will no longer be the dualistic or multiplistic opposition. Why do we still need to argue about the self and life force? Life force is one thing, and the self is another. Then, it becomes a dualistic or multiplistic opposition. Despite pondering them over and over, the debate leads to no conclusion. It does not help you restore the intrinsic nature of the state of oneness. Why even continue to study this issue? This is not the key to our being liberated from the ocean of sufferings in the cycle of karmic existence. Why do you keep researching it? And then you embark on studying another thing, the seventh avicta, or indeterminate question, does the Tathagata exist after death? Do those Buddhas still exist after they die? People would answer, how could a Tathagata die? Given a Tathagata has the ability to enter the state of oneness, their intrinsic nature is eternal, unchanging, and immortal. The intrinsic nature of all sentient beings is eternal and indestructible. The only question is whether you can enter the state of oneness. Even though the Tathagata has no physical body left, their Dharma nature still exists and can enter the state of oneness, becoming all-pervasive. How can they not exist? So, again, people argue about the eighth victor, or indeterminate question: does the Tathagata not exist after death? Does it mean that they will no longer exist? Of course not. They will continue to exist in the state of oneness. Lord Buddha Shakyamuni always said that all material substances cannot last forever, and always stay unchanged. So, when it comes to material substances, there is no need to go on to the further discussion. You cannot say they are related, linking a Buddha with material substances. So when the material substances die, the Buddha will be dead, too. You cannot think this way. But the question is, can studying these issues help you in any way? The ninth victor, or indeterminate question, is: does the Tathagata both exist and non-exist after death? Do they exist or not? They exist in the state of oneness. They exist, of course. But when you cannot see them in the dualistic or multiplistic state, you will think that they do not exist. The 10th victor, or indeterminate question, is: does the Tathagata neither exist nor non-exist after death? After pondering over and over again, you get even more confused, starting to become a little crazy and say, does the Buddha not exist as well as not non-exist after death? It is neither existence nor non-existence. These philosophical subjects will only make people dizzy. Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said, what do you study it for? The state of oneness will be eternal and unchanging. The Tathagata will definitely be able to exist. But the problem is that, in your understanding, you feel that they do not exist. You feel that they seem to exist as well as non-exist. This is because you have not even understood what oneness is. So you definitely do not understand what I am talking about now, do you? Therefore, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni listed these 10 philosophical questions, and called them avicta, or indeterminate questions. There is no way to tell or classify whether they are virtuous or evil. However, they will hinder your Dharma practice. So, they are called avicta, or indeterminate questions. The chapter 408 of the Samyuktagama Sutra, volume 16, records such discourses. When the Lord Buddha was living in Kalaka Venuvana, Raja, many bhikshus gathered together to discuss non-dharma issues. They discussed questions such as whether the world was permanent, and whether it was eternal and unchanging. The Lord Buddha said to them, your so-called discussion topics are fundamentally meaningless and not beneficial. That is, they do not help in terms of meaning. They are non-dharma and not beneficial. That is, they do not help in terms of the Buddhist holy Dharma. They cannot help your Dharma practice, because they are not Buddhist holy Dharma. They are non-Brahmacharya and not beneficial. What is Brahmacharya? Brahmacharya Brahma practice refers to pure and clean behaviors. These topics are not about pure and clean behaviors, nor can they help you in any way. Non-wisdom, they are not a kind of wisdom. Non-enlightenment, they are not a kind of realizing and knowing of the perfect enlightenment. Not the right path to nirvana, they cannot help you enter the state of Mahaparinirvana, the state of oneness, to attain Buddhahood. Since they cannot be of any help to you, why are you still discussing them? The Lord Buddha thus encouraged the bhikshus to talk about other more meaningful subjects. It is better for you to discuss the noble truth of suffering. When the Lord Buddha taught Hinayana, he taught the Four Noble Truths, for extraordinary truths. It is better to recognize the true face of suffering Sanskrit, dukkha, Pali, dukkha, which will bother you very much. It will entangle you constantly in your countless lifetimes. No matter how you reincarnate, you will not be able to escape from these sufferings. You had better to recognize its true colors, and then take a look at the noble truth of the origin of suffering to understand how the sufferings are formed and how they accumulate. The noble truth of the cessation of suffering, you should also see how you can get rid of all these sufferings, that is, to be liberated from these sufferings. The Lord Buddha said you should eliminate them. The noble truth of the path to the cessation of suffering. What are the methods to eliminate them? What is the right path? It is better to study these 4 questions. According to the chapter 962 of the Samyuktagama Sutra, volume 34, the Parabjaka Vakagota came to visit the Lord Buddha when he was in Kalaka Venuvana, Raja. The Lord Buddha used an analogy to tell him, "I'll give you a piece of advice. You should stop studying these kinds of questions, and don't ask me these questions again." Because Lord Buddha Shakyamuni was repeatedly asked these questions that he did not wish to answer, which he felt would bring no one benefit even after answering them. So, he used an example to explain it. I have an analogy. For example, if someone has set a fire in front of you now, should you put out the fire as soon as possible since the fire has already reached you and will burn your clothes very soon? Do you want to extinguish the fire as soon as possible or investigate who set the fire and where the person has gone? He meant that it is extremely urgent to focus on things you should solve right now, while you can still take advantage of this short life. You are about to die. There are only 20 or 30 years left, or maybe even shorter before you die. In other words, there is no time to practice the holy Dharma, and you will already have to take rebirths. All the things that you knew before, or the things obtained from your Dharma practice, could only be stored in your subconscious, but could no longer be retrieved to help you. Then you will follow your own evil karma to take rebirth in painful places, where you will commit even more evil karma then. He said, in such a critical state, do you still want to study the place where you will fall if you die in the future? You'd better face reality and accept that the outcome will not be a good one for sure. It is better to hurry up and take the opportunity to practice the holy Dharma now. So, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni urged him not to ask such unnecessary questions anymore, but go to practice the holy Dharma instead. Go practice the 4 Noble Truths. It means to put out the fire that is going to burn you as soon as possible. According to the Madhyama Agama Sutra, volume 60, the chapter 10 of the Cul Amalankyaputta, the parable of the arrow, the place was in Sravasti, and it was Venerable Malankyaputta who asked this similar question. The Lord Buddha used a parable to answer him. It was as if a man was pierced by a poisoned arrow and was about to die of poison. Should he immediately pull out the arrow and detoxify himself as soon as possible, or track down which direction the arrow came from? Even after tracking it down, you would be already dead from poisoning. Which matter is more pressing? So, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni used this parable to explain, please do not engage in the study of those philosophical topics of avicta, or indeterminate questions, anymore. You will then see how Guru Rinpoche explained avicta, or indeterminate questions, the third category he referred to as no neutral thought. If you can stay away from the entanglement of this kind of avicta, no longer be entangled with those philosophical questions, it means you have already recognized the natural face of awareness as being locationless. In other words, you have already known what intrinsic nature is. Intrinsic nature is all-pervasive. Since it is all-pervasive, there is certainly no indication of which point it will abide at and where it will be. Since it is all-pervasive, there will be no east, south, west, or north, and there will not be an issue of whether it will abide in the east or in the west. There is no such thing. In short, it is all-pervasive. Only when you have recognized the true appearance of the awareness can you understand this truth thoroughly, and then you can stay away from the thought of avicta. You cannot stay away from it had you not understood the truth. So, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said that the avicta entangled you so much, and these topics made you feel mysterious and fascinating. If you can stay away from them, it is called no neutral thought, being detached from their entanglement. If you can stay away from all, or even only one, of these 3 types of thoughts, it is already very good, and can be considered no thought. If you could also work with the 4 formless concentrations, what are the 4 formless concentrations? They have the conceptual thinking of the form realm eliminated. As you know, there are no material substances in the formless realm, whereas the form realm still has fine material substances. I have said these before. Since there are material substances, there are things in the dualistic or multiplistic state, all of which will lead to the formation of your conceptual thinking. You will continue to evolve your mental consciousness based on these fine material substances. So, which state can you enter if you can purify and eliminate these fine conceptual thinking of the form realm? The formless realm. But one must have meditational power to enter the formless realm. What kind of meditational power must one rely upon to enter the formless realm? It is called the 4 formless concentrations, that is, to be able to purify and remove all the conceptual thinking of the form realm. Let me talk about what these 4 formless concentrations refer to. Which 4 are they? Guru Rinpoche said this, dwelling on the thought, all phenomena are like space. If you wish to engage in meditational practices, there is a behavioral formula and programming called the program of meditational practices. What is going on in your head when you are trying to enter a meditative state? Are you thinking of the East or the West? Are you contemplating yourself as the deity? Or are you thinking nothing at all? Or do you have some programs of meditational practices that will provide you with definitions and standards to enter a meditative state? This is called the program of meditational practices. You have to be extremely careful with this program of meditational practices. As long as there is a slight bias in it, just a tiny little bit, you will get into big trouble. Guru Rinpoche said, for example, what will you specifically visualize in the program of meditational practices you are practicing now? It is to visualize that all phenomena are like space. You will empty everything you see, all of them. You visualize nothing. Anything you see is empty. Anything you feel is empty. Suppose your program is like this, you will deviate from the right path. If it is like this, you will go astray. If you do well in your meditational practices and score 100 points, I can tell you, you can get into this realm even if you have scored fewer than 100 points. It is one of the 4 formless concentrations, and you will enter the land of infinite space. Where is the land of infinite space? It is the first level of the heavens of the formless realm. You will enter the first heaven of the formless realm. If you remember my explanation of the 3 realms, the human realm is at the middle level of the desire realm, and there are some low-level heavenly realms above it. One is able to enter these low-level heavenly realms without practicing meditation. Sometimes, one has the opportunity to enter them if one has ample virtuous retributions. What is the form realm? It is the high-level heavenly realms, which require 4 kinds of meditational power to enter. The primary level of meditational power is called the first dhyana. The first level is called the first dhyana. When your meditational power reaches the first level, you will be able to enter the 3 heavens of the first dhyana. If your ability is of the second level, it is called the second dhyana, and you can enter the 3 heavens higher above. If your meditational power reaches the third level, it is called the third dhyana, and you can enter 3 more heavens. It is like there are 8 grades of piano exams, but here there are only 4 grades. If your meditational power reaches the 4th level, you can go higher and enter 9 more heavens. The form realm has 18 heavens in total. The top 9 heavens are further classified. The highest 5 are called the 5 heavens of non-returning. If you can enter them, you can be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. Without the 4th level meditational power, the 4th dhyana, you are unable to enter them. These are all high-level heavenly realms. What is the formless realm? The formless realm also requires meditational power to enter. But what exists in the formless realm? Are there many Buddhas there? No. None of the Buddhas will go there. They will only go to the Akanistha, the highest of the heavens of the form realm, where the material substances are so sparse that there are virtually none left. What about the formless realm? Buddhas will not go there. The sentient beings in the formless realm are completely intangible without material substances, forms, or shapes. Some explain, no, they still have little sparse material substances left. It is just that the substances are too thin for their existence to be perceived. That is not the point, whichever explanation. The point is that they do have mental consciousness that exists there, which is divided into 4 levels. Their lifespan is extremely long as 80,000 Mahakalpas. Is such a long life good or bad? Don't people like longevity? Is it good or bad? I will answer you now. They just use one thought, only one thought. As long as this one thought abides in one of these 4 types of mental consciousness, and they will not have any thought and notion arising by seeing any scene outside, that is, no thought outside will affect them, that means their meditational power is already very high. They will not come up with any thought or notion when seeing anything, as if they are fast asleep. They will not react with any thought towards the outside world. So, you may consider this kind of meditational power to be very high. Yes, it is indeed very high. Unfortunately, their program of entering a meditative state is wrong. What happens if it is wrong? How long can this one thought of theirs last? It can last for 80,000 Mahakalpas. Are 80,000 Mahakalpas not good? Definitely not. Because when their lives end, when can they get out of this one thought and leave this state? When they leave this state and their one thought becomes a second thought, it is also the time when of their lifespan ends. That is, they can no longer stay in any of the 4 heavens of the formless realm. Why will they wake up? Why will their one thought become a second thought, or a third thought? It is because they have already used up all their virtuous merits. It turns out that when they use their one thought to stay there for 80,000 Mahakalpas, it also means they are constantly consuming their virtuous merits. When these merits are exhausted, which can last for as long as 80,000 Mahakalpas, they will wake up. As soon as they wake up, what is left when all their virtuous merits are gone? What is left when all virtuous merits in your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio are gone? Only the evil retributions remain. What will happen when the evil retributions come? More often than not, you will fall into the 3 lower realms. What will happen to you? You will fall into the 3 lower realms. That is, there will be no good results. You will not go to the mid-level places, such as being reborn as a human or go to a low-level heavenly realms. None of these. Why? You have exhausted your virtuous merits too much. To what extent? You have used up all 80,000 Mahakalpas of your virtues and merits. There will be nothing left. Nothing at all. Because there is nothing left, you will come out of that one thought. Otherwise, you will not be able to withdraw. This is how you have trapped yourself. The fact is that you are trapping yourself. The sentient beings of the formless realm live in such a state. There are no 5 roots, 5 dusts, and 5 consciousness. These have been explained before, and I will not repeat them here. You can review them in the 1st to 19th episodes of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhisattva series. They are in a state where there is only mental consciousness. What will happen? You only have one thought without carrying out any actions. You will do nothing. You will carry out no deeds, neither planting virtuous karma nor evil karma. You are only living in that state with one thought. What would happen then? Then, your virtuous merits will be depleted. The only thing you can do is to live there. If you want to live there, you have to exhaust your virtuous merits. But you have not done anything. You are not doing new things. You only know how to use old virtuous merits, and are not accumulating new ones. In the end, all will be depleted. The heavens of the form realm have more or less some material structures. That is, you can still somehow plant a little virtuous merits when you are awakened and enlightened. The virtuous merits will not be consumed too quickly. So, there will not be only expenses without income. There will be a little bit of income. But in this state, there is no income, as you are doing nothing. So, there is no liberation. Why? If you do not receive anything, how can you develop your wisdom? Without wisdom, how can you be liberated from samsara? Your realizing and knowing cannot be aroused. Without realizing and knowing, how are you going to help yourself? So, there will be no liberation. You cannot find the true path. To put it simply, as you do not search for it and do nothing at all, you cannot be liberated from the suffering of the 6 realms, reincarnation of life and death within the 3 realms. I am now explaining how terrible the formless realm is. All these boil down to the misunderstanding of emptiness in the process of Dharma practice, which forms the state of no thought. You will then be trapped in the formless realm. Can you imagine how important a guru is to you? You must have a real guru, who must at least know how to explain these holy Dharma. If this guru does not even explain these things, you will never know why you end up like this when you die. You only know to follow their way of Dharma practice, which is to visualize everything as empty. You follow their visualization practice precisely as what they teach. There is nothing at all. It turns out that the more diligent you practice like this, the more tragic you will die. It is all because of the little bit that is missing. Perhaps when they explain to you, they leave out that little bit, or they do not know how to explain that little bit. Do you know it takes a very high level for one to be able to explain just that little bit? It requires a high level of wisdom to be able to explain it. Many people simply do not have such a high level of wisdom. It will be all wrong if their explanation lacks only that little bit. Hence, it will be a very tragic situation. The sentient beings in the formless realm will be reborn in its 4 independent heavens according to the meditational power of their Dharma practice and the state of their mental consciousness. Let me introduce the 4 heavens of the formless realm. The first is the land of infinite space. Sanskrit, Akasanantiyatana. It is the lowest of the 4 heavens of the formless realm. Suppose you practice the formless concentrations for the first time. When practicing its first level, you are taught by someone to regard in your consciousness that all material substances are what bother us and prevent us from being liberated from samsara. As long as we can abandon all material substances, we can succeed in our Dharma practice. Suppose you are taught like this. This will become a program in your mind. What is the program? It may have already been planted in your subconscious, and there is no need to think about it specially. I am going to visualize, not clinging to any material substances now. There is no need to do so, because while you are first educated like this, it will gradually become your subconscious. You will not be obsessed with any material substances automatically. Where does your mind focus instead? You think about the boundless and limitless visualization of emptiness all day long. You empty everything. You can visualize it to be very empty every time you sit for meditation. You will visualize nothing. No material substances exist. Everything is emptied. So, you are very pleased, considering yourself excellent in the practice. I'm so good at it now. I've entered the emptiness and will definitely attain Buddhahood. I won't pull any material substances together after death. That is, I will no longer take rebirth. I'm sure I can be liberated from samsara. I am afraid that you merely abide your mind in the boundless emptiness. You are just making your mind correspond to the boundless and limitless emptiness. In doing so, you will enter the so-called land of infinite space, the first level of the formless realm. It is equivalent to the current popular and fashionable cognitive rest method called zoning out, or spacing out. It is having its moment now, where people will allow their minds to wander or zone out in their free time. Is this zoning out good or not? If you have an unsatisfactory job in the secular life, or an ideal but exhausting job, plus your home is not peaceful, and you are troubled like hell, and everything is not going well, so you feel very depressed in your mind, it is good for you to engage in this kind of zoning out and let your mind rest. Just empty everything and think nothing at all. This is good for you, because allowing the nervous system to rest is beneficial to your health. Yes, it is good. But suppose you are obsessed with it and always use this program to enter a meditative state in the future. In that case, I am afraid that you will have planted a cause to end up entering the 80,000 Mohakalpas and exhausting all your virtuous retributions and merits in the future. You will enter the land of infinite space and be trapped in the formless realm in the future. The second level of heaven is the land of infinite consciousness, Sanskrit, Vijnananchayatana. For example, suppose your mind is educated to be averse to all outer material substances, for you are told that all those material substances are empty and non-existent, and they are merely constituted by our mental consciousness. And then, we further visualize the mental consciousness of our mind as boundless and limitless. In short, it is boundless and limitless. It has many scenes, not completely empty. There will be many scenes in it, and those scenes are all formed by the intertwining of mental consciousness, and is manifested by our mind. There is no need to empty it all. There are plentiful boundless and limitless scenes, which are incredible. You can use your realizing and knowing, the ability of your mind, to go anywhere, even outer space. You can even see everything in space. You will know and see all these scenes, such as how many worlds there are in outer space, what sentient beings live in each world, and the habits of each sentient being, etc. Suppose your program of meditational practices is like this, and you can enter this state and see everything. Isn't this supernatural power? Haven't I attained Buddhahood? Buddhas can see everything. Now I'm seeing all the things just like them. Needless to say, I can definitely attain Buddhahood. I am afraid that you can only enter the land of infinite consciousness. Your mental consciousness has no boundaries and limits, and can go to infinite places and experience all things. In that case, you can go to the second heaven of the formless realm. But you will also be trapped there. The third is the land of nothingness. Sanskrit, Akinkanayatana. Your behavioral formula and programming, or the program of entering a meditative state, is like this. You deny the existence of all external material substances and obstacles, as well as deny the inner mental consciousness. Everything that comes from the mind is of no intrinsic nature. Why even bother seeing and sensing it? Why even think that it exists? It is better to visualize that these things do not even exist in your thought or consciousness, and think that there is nothing at all internally or externally, including the mental consciousness. You are practicing the so-called visualization of nothingness, including your own mind showing and perceiving nothing. As such, you will go to the third heaven, the land of nothingness. There is nothing, none at all. And again, you will be trapped. The fourth heaven is called the land of neither thinking nor not thinking. Sanskrit, Naivasamjnanasamjñatana. What is this? To get to this heaven, I can tell you, you have already reached a very high level of meditational power, which is extremely peaceful and profound. You have to reach the state of being extremely peaceful and profound to be able to enter it. If this state is reached, there is no coarse thinking, which we call neither thinking. We are always thinking about this and that. As you know, you think about things all day long, either thinking about what is fun in the West or what is interesting in the East. In short, you think about everything, including pain, happiness, and any person. These are called coarse thinking. They are some relatively gross concepts or thoughts in the world. At this moment, you do not have any of these thoughts or thinking. Your mind is very peaceful. As you know, we ordinary people's minds never rest for a moment. You will notice that your head never stops thinking. In contrast, the mind of those in this heaven is peaceful without any thought, as if they are not thinking. So, it is called neither thinking. They are not thinking about anything. However, they do not completely cut off all their thoughts. There is still some subtle thinking. What is subtle thinking? It is very subtle, so subtle that it only works in the subconscious, as if it is still ongoing and thinking. So, it is called nor not thinking. It is not that they are not thinking, nor are they thinking. This is neither thinking nor not thinking. Because it is too subtle, so subtle that it only works in the subconscious. It may not be perceived, but in fact it is still working, so it is neither thinking nor not thinking. If you have reached this state, I am afraid you will be trapped in the fourth heaven. What does the advice from the lotus-born say? Let us look at how Guru Rinpoche explains this. Why do I want to explain the four formless concentrations? I am citing ordinary people's explanation of the four formless concentrations. Of course, their explanations may not be as clear and thorough as mine. Their explanation may make you only understand partly. You seem to understand, but you do not. In fact, I have tried to explain the correct holy Dharma as clearly as I can, so people should be able to understand it with common sense. It may be easier to understand Guru Rinpoche's explanation after listening to the common sense I have talked about first. That is why I do not talk about Guru Rinpoche's explanation until now. What does Guru Rinpoche say exactly? Guru Rinpoche put it like this. Since your program of entering a meditative state is dwelling on the thought, all phenomena are like space, you stray into the land of infinite space. Since your program of entering a meditative state is dwelling on the thought, consciousness is infinite and directionless, you stray into land of infinite consciousness. Since your program of entering a meditative state is dwelling on the thought, the clear cognizance of perception is not present, not absent, and cannot be made an object of the intellect. In other words, it is not really something of the dualistic or multiplistic state. There will not really be you, nor will you think of another thing. For example, you like to eat oranges. If it is only you, it is one-dimensional, like two is the second dimension, oranges are the third. When you only see an orange, you are the first dimension, while the orange you see is the second dimension. Here can be many more dimensions derived further from the dualistic or multiplistic state. But you are not in such a state, for you cannot see anything existing nor the existence of yourself, but it is not non-existent. You are not using your intellect or wisdom to visualize something or perceive its existence. But they seem to exist, lurking in your subconscious without being wiped out thoroughly. So, they seem to exist as well as not exist. Then, you will deviate from the right path. It means that when trying to enter a meditative state, your behavioral formula and programming is to visualize a state that is faintly discernible. Some of their programs of entering a meditative state require them to visualize a state that seems to be present as well as absent. Then, they will enter the land of neither thinking nor not thinking. Fourthly, Guru Rinpoche said, since your program of entering a meditative state is dwelling on the thought, this mind does not consist of any entity whatsoever. You feel that the mind is not made of a physical entity. The mind is non-existent and empty. You have such an idea. Say your program is like this. But the problem is that you say it is not made of an entity, for the mind does not exist and is empty. But this is unbalanced. It is simply like a situation where the scale is leaning on one side. That is why Guru Rinpoche said that you would go off the right path and stray into the land of nothingness. There will be nothing left. Because you even say that there is no such thing as the evolution of the mind. Then there will really be nothing left. These four things, I can tell you that these four kinds of wrong programs of entering a meditative state have one common characteristic. That is, they all hold external material substances in detestation. There is no attachment to any material substances. For this reason, one will not enter the heavens of the form realm, but the heavens of the formless realm. It is because of this characteristic. In addition to one of these four thoughts, there is one more. You have an utmost dislike towards material substances, and will not cling to or be attached to any of them. You also need to have this one to go with before entering the four formless concentrations. And then you will enter one of the four heavens in the formless realm. It will be like this. This is called the characteristic of thought. It does not necessarily only happen when you are sitting for meditation, entering a meditative state, or applying the programs of entering a meditative state. Not necessarily. It could happen after you have listened to Buddhist holy Dharma, or read the Buddhist sutras. Other religions also teach like this. Do not say it has to be the Buddhist sutras only. This is not just a problem that arises when you misinterpret the Buddhist sutra. In fact, other religions also teach meditation like this to enter the emptiness. It is the same situation. Other religions also teach like this. What other religions teach is completely wrong. Why do so many practitioners of other religions end up entering the formless realm? It is because they lack the most important element, which I will explain shortly. What do they lack actually to end up like this? So far, I am telling you what elements they have that cause them to end up like this. But what element do they lack exactly? Can it be balanced? I have yet to talk about that. So, I will tell you now the cause that makes them end up like this. Say I am studying the Buddhist holy Dharma now. Other religions do not speak of balance, and they lack something I am going to talk about soon. Because they lack it, they will definitely enter the four formless concentrations and one of the four heavens in the formless realm. In Buddhism, however, suppose you misinterpret the Buddhist holy Dharma, or your guru does not understand it well themselves, misses something in their teaching, or they do not know how to teach, omit a little bit, and do not include that thing. Instead, they teach you to give up all material substances, and not to be obsessed with any material substances, for all these are nothing but an ocean of suffering. Do not be attached to anything. Do not cling to anything in the world. In this way, you will have planted the thought of disliking any external material substances. You have planted this element. And you also have the four things that I mentioned earlier being included in your program of entering a meditative state. Or it may not have to do with entering a meditative state. It may be just that you follow what others say to empty everything. Or they may teach you that everything is made up of mental consciousness, and so we can see a lot of things. Or they may teach you that it seems to exist and also seems not to exist. In short, it is faintly discernible. Either way, you have this set of things in your mind. You do not use these things to sit for meditation, as your program of entering a meditative state. But you have this set of things in your mind. As I said before, your intrinsic awareness will be restored when you die. But your intrinsic awareness will drop very quickly. The realizing and knowing ability of the perfect enlightenment will diminish rapidly, and you will immediately shift to this set of things that you have now planted in your subconscious. And so you will quickly enter the formless realm. This is where their danger lies. Why do these states put you in danger? Because there is still conceptualization, thereby conceptualizing emptiness, or that everything should be emptied. That is, you are visualizing things now, and you are going to visualize everything as empty. Your concept is to empty everything. This is called conceptualization. Mental fascinations, said Guru Rinpoche. Guru Rinpoche said that you have mental fascinations, for you are fascinated by the idea that everything should be emptied, thinking that you cannot enter the state of emptiness as long as you do not empty it all. You also have the experiences of dualistic mind. In fact, you have not entered the state of oneness, for your program is dualistic. Guru Rinpoche said that you possess the slight defilement. What is the slight defilement of duality? It is because you are still thinking about it being neither present nor absent. You keep reminding yourself that the meditative state you are about to enter is neither existent nor non-existent. This is, in fact, a duality. Neither existent is one dimension nor non-existent is another dimension, that is, dualistic. What are you lacking, actually? When you practice the Holy Dharma, you are practicing as if you are reading a book by conceptualizing it and turning it into two things. As a result, there will be a slight defilement. It could have helped you originally. Practicing the Holy Dharma is like climbing the stairs, which must have first, second, and third levels. It is impossible for one to ascend to heaven in a single bound. You cannot reach the realizing and knowing of the perfect enlightenment instantaneously, can you? The question is, you need to know whether your guru will teach you like I am teaching you now, reminding you that you are practicing the visualization method at the primary level, and that there are still second and third levels to go. In the end, you cannot use this visualization method, but a different state to practice the Holy Dharma. But as you are at the primary level, you can visualize emptiness for the time being. But do not be obsessed with it. Do not conceptualize it. Do not be attached to it. Do not dualize it. Otherwise, you will enter the formless realm in the future. Formless realm. Sounds not too bad, since it is still the realm of heavens. Then, your guru must again explain how miserable the formless realm is. Abiding in a thought for 80,000 mohakalpas will exhaust all your virtuous merits in your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio. When there is not even a speckle of virtuous merits left, you will fall out of it directly to those places of hells, hungry ghosts and animals. So, will you fall into the realm of hells, hungry ghosts, or animals? Where you will fall into is determined by what kind of evil karma you have. Your guru must explain so clearly, as just missing a little bit will get you into big trouble. If you fail to understand the truth and still claim the formless realm to be good, then you will pay no attention to it. So, you must be very careful about these. These are all called insensate emptiness, which is a term originally used by other religions. Why do I also quote it? Buddhism originally did not have this term. Now that I have used it, let me explain it. It means very stubborn. That is, your program of entering a meditative state and the set of thoughts are very stubborn. You will get into trouble if you insist on this kind of stubborn and wrong thinking as the program of your Dharma practice. You do not progress in due order and miss a lot of things. But you say that it is this guru who teaches you and you have absolute confidence in the guru. In esoteric Buddhism, it is strictly stipulated that all will of the guru must be obeyed. If the guru says there is no sun, then I'll have to say there is no sun. If the guru says the sun rises in the west, then I'll have to agree. They say the program of visualizing emptiness must be practiced this way, so I have to follow what they teach me to practice. They claim that as long as I have absolute faith in this kind of Dharma practice, I can definitely attain Buddhahood. Rest assured, I will attain Buddhahood in no time. You may rest assured that you will not attain Buddhahood in the end. Why? Because you will enter one of the four heavens of the formless realm. Wrong is wrong. You must face the reality and accept it. You say, I believe in my guru. Has your guru attained Buddhahood? Are they up to par yet? You say, how would I know? Perhaps they have really attained Buddhahood. It is very easy to tell. As per my previous teaching, you will know after listening to what they say. If they do not even teach you the basics, and do not tell you how dangerous it is or what problems you may encounter when you get to that level, then it is not okay. How can you still say they are up to par? All the Dharma practice methods they teach you must be in the right state. If they teach you incorrectly, they can no longer be considered competent. Do not be so stubborn and persistently adhere to this set of thoughts as a thought pattern, or the program of entering a meditative state. Otherwise, you will be doomed eternally. Okay, you may say, I work very hard. The more I practice, the more diligent I become. The more diligently you practice, the quicker you will be trapped in a state of the formless realm. You will enter it undoubtedly. Therefore, the 4 formless concentrations are pitfalls of samadhi, right concentration. This is not said by me but by Guru Rinpoche. Guru Rinpoche said this in the advice from the Lotus Born: the 4 formless concentrations are pitfalls of samadhi, right concentration. The right concentration in brackets is written by me. Samadhi means right concentration, which is not written in the book. It only states that the 4 formless concentrations are pitfalls of samadhi. Guru Rinpoche said this. This happens when we are entering a meditative state. Now I will talk about what happens when we are not in a meditative state. As long as you follow the operation of this mode of thinking, the moment when you die and 100% of your Dharma nature appears suddenly, followed by a rapid decline, you will immediately enter your current mode of thinking. This is how you will be trapped. So, do not say it is okay as long as you are not in a meditative state, and nothing will happen. You are mistaken. You will definitely get into trouble. But here, since Guru Rinpoche was talking about samadhi, he only talked about the state of concentration, but not death. So he did not say how dangerous it would be when you die. I have now added this point to let you know. As Guru Rinpoche warned, these 4 formless concentrations are a pitfall. Well, in the process of Dharma practice, there will be the following sensations and responses when the state of no thought appears. The first is seeing various scenes of forms and emptiness. One will see the phenomenon of all the scenes interweaving with emptiness. For example, one may see material substances being merged into emptiness, or a lot of scenes appearing out of emptiness in an instant. This is called various scenes of forms and emptiness. Do you know that there is a set of visualization practices and rituals in esoteric Buddhism that requires one to be able to visualize any material substance being merged into emptiness instantly and to manifest all scenes from emptiness right away? We must train our mind to develop such an extraordinary ability. Is the purpose of doing this to make you attached to it? Of course not. You say, if I can see this scene, it means that I've succeeded practicing this ritual. I must tell my guru as soon as possible. I am very good now, as I've scored 100 points for all the rituals you gave me. The fact is that you have only entered the state of no thought. Is no thought good or bad? I will tell you shortly. The second is that you will feel that everything is empty. In terms of realizing and sensing, you will feel that everything is empty for all states. How incredible it is to be able to experience that everything is empty. Buddhism often talks about everything is empty. I can actually succeed in practicing it. I can feel it. It is incredible, of course. In fact, this belongs to one state of no thought. The third is seeing clearly that all scenes are without intrinsic nature. In terms of realizing and sensing, you can see and realize that all states, regardless of what state it is, have no intrinsic nature, and you will not be attached to it. You know that it has no intrinsic nature. This is also incredible. Do you know that it would take a long time to practice the holy Dharma before you can reach this level? This is also a state of no thought. The fourth is seeing that the body and all scenes are empty. The body is also gone, and all scenes are empty. You see that nothing is left, including your own body. This is also one state of no thought. However, if these 4 states appear, and there is still slight defilement of being conceptualizations, mental fascinations, and experiences of dualistic mind, you will get into trouble. This is the case for many people. You must pay attention to this paragraph, the third point. This third point explains a very important state of realizing and sensing. One is supposed to reach this state in one's Dharma practice. It is supposed to be excellent if one is able to cultivate to this state. But unfortunately, when some people have cultivated to this state, they develop a kind of attachment. They will think, how excellent I am. I can even see any scene in outer space whenever I enter a meditative state. I can sense and recognize all the scenes. But I don't cling to them and stay there. I can fully realize and know that these states and scenes do not have their intrinsic nature, and the day of their disillusionment will eventually come. They will go through the arising, abiding, changing, and ceasing stages. They will not stay, and they will change in the future. Their intrinsic nature itself is not eternal and unchanging. I understand it well. I use all my Buddhist knowledge to perceive it. Unfortunately, you keep thinking about it after emerging from a meditative state, or even during a session of meditative concentration. It is so great to be able to see this state. How incredible! It lasts for 3 minutes this time. And then next time, you will say, it's amazing that I can last for half an hour this time. After some time, you may say, oh no. I could see nothing, despite having meditated for 3 hours, or sat still for a whole day. This is called conceptualizing a thing. First of all, you have determined that this state can help you attain Buddhahood, and you will definitely attain Buddhahood. This is called conceptualization. You have mental fascinations towards it. You will feel that your Dharma practice is not successful once you have lost hold of it. You have a slight experience of the dualistic or multiplistic state. Why? You consider this state to be the one that you have achieved successfully. You are the first dimension. You being able to achieve this state is the second dimension. As such, you have a mind with dualistic or multiplistic experiences, and there exist some defilements. As long as you are like this, even the things that could help you attain Buddhahood will become ones that will help you fall into the formless realm. You only do it wrong a little bit. So, what should we do? We should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions. That is why the Diamond Sutra says you should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions. But I have not abided in any notions. Despite seeing all those states, I have perceived that they have no intrinsic nature. I am not attached to any of the states. I am sorry to say that you have some attachments when you emerge from the meditative state. You are still thinking about how good this state is, and you must have it again next time. Then, you have already failed to achieve, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. It could even happen when the state appears. You are still in a session of meditative concentration, and have not come out of it, and the state lasts for 3 minutes. But then it disappears at 3 minutes, and 1/10 of a second, while you still have not emerged from the meditative concentration. And you already feel, the state is incredible. It was not too bad today, as it already lasted for 3 minutes. You have already abided in the notion. Indeed you have. So, these are the things your guru must teach you. I am not saying seeing clearly that all scenes are without intrinsic nature is no good. But it is not good if you develop a little attachment to it. The Diamond Sutra teaches us that we should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. You think that you have achieved 100 points. I can tell you now, you have not scored 100 points, but 80 points at most. There are still 20 points short. Where will you be reincarnated in this way? The formless realm. Will it be such a huge difference? There is only a fine line between the thoughts, which lead to completely different endings. Is it so dangerous? Of course. Which state are you in now? You are in a meditative state. Just a little bit off, and the meditative state will help you go to other places in an instant. Do you know that meditational power itself is an extremely powerful mental strength? It is just like a rocket that needs fuel. This is a high-speed fuel that helps us go to other realms in an instant. So, do not think that it is excellent if you can sit still for a few hours, a few days, or even a few months. It is not how long you can sit still that matters. What really matters is how correct your program of entering a meditative state is, the set of your thinking patterns. That is what you really need, the most important thing for your Dharma practice. So, some people are envious. Wow. You are so amazing. You can sit for several hours without moving. I would like to acknowledge you as my Dharma brother. Then you see another one who is able to sit for several months without moving. Wow. You are incredible. I would like to acknowledge you as my guru. It is not about sitting until you become a tree man. They are called tree men because they seem to have become a tree. Even birds will lay eggs and build nests on them, so they become like a tree. That is why people called those Dharma practitioners, who sat still without moving in the past, tree men. I have said this before. Remember, do not look for a guru who does not move. What kind of guru should you look for? It has to be someone who is able to explain the Buddhist holy Dharma to you, someone who is able to explain the essence of these Dharma teachings as I do. What is meant by should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions. Everyone knows how to explain this. It means not to abide in notions. So, how do we apply it? Where will it go wrong? To what extent will one only score 80 points? All these must be explained clearly. This key point must be explained properly, seeing clearly that all scenes are without intrinsic nature. For such a good state, it turns out that you still cannot cooperate with the second oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra. You may not even be able to cooperate with the first oral pith instruction, let alone the second, right? If you cannot work with them, you will be in trouble. If you can do so, there should not be any slight defilement of being conceptualizations, mental fascinations, and experiences of dualistic mind. Hence, as far as these states of bliss, luminosity, and no thought are concerned, sometimes all three will appear together. Sometimes only one will appear. Sometimes when you experience no thought, there is also a kind of nature of clarity in it simultaneously. It means that luminosity also appears, with which you seem to be able to understand or realize and know everything in a very clear, thorough, and far-reaching manner. You can feel it even at a distance. But there is no thought, you do not have any attachment. You do not have any thoughts being attached to these states. You feel very joyful and delightful. There is indescribable blissfulness. You may have all three, or only one of them. You may also experience none of them. You must not be attached to any of them. As long as you are attached to any of them, you will be unable to achieve, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. You may think it is not a big deal not being able to achieve this, as you can try again next time. I am afraid that if you cannot achieve this, yet you excel in meditational practices, and the states of bliss, luminosity, and no thought occur frequently, the chances of you entering the formless realm after death will be very high. Do you get it? This is where the danger of bliss, luminosity, and no thought lies. But everyone hopes to encounter these kinds of state whenever they meditate, as this represents a score for your level. If you do not encounter these states, how can you overcome these dangers to attain Buddhahood, right? You must go through these experiences first, right? The problem is that if you cling to them, you will go crazy. Even if you are not attached to them, but only to a minimal extent, you will still enter the formless realm. In other words, you must score 100 points on the oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. Alright. Who is Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche? Please take a look at this photo. His Holiness Kyabya Chadral Sangye Dorje Rinpoche is one of our three root gurus. This is a photo of him and Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche. Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche practiced both Kargyupa and Nyingmapa. This is how he explained bliss, luminosity, and no thought. Let us have a listen. He said, the characteristics of these three merits, bliss, luminosity, and no thought, are the basic attributes of the mind's intrinsic nature. When your meditational practice gets to a certain level, your mind will show these abilities and states when it is in deep concentration. This demonstrates a certain level of accuracy in your program of entering a meditative state. It is not 100 points, of course, as there are things still missing. But you do have that kind of element. It is just that it is not complete and accurate enough. That is why these states appear. As I said earlier, you must not be obsessed with material substances to be able to enter these states. That is, they require many elements. It is like filling a prescription, for which you must pick up all the prescribed medicines. Yet you fail to do so, which is why you will get into trouble. The fact is that it is only a manifestation of the essence of your nature of mind, so they are not a trap in and of themselves. They are not a trap, but a state and a situation that naturally manifests. They will only appear when one's meditational power reaches a certain level. But when our focus is led to the attributes of these merits, your attention is directed in the wrong direction by yourself, your guru, your Dharma brothers, your unrelated fellow practitioners, your friends, or by some books in the bookshops out there. Or it is due to your own greed, hatred, and ignorance. Your mind training is not good, and you are really fond of these states. So, you are well aware of these attributes. It is like taking LSD, and being unable to get rid of it. Without it, you will feel miserable. You must have bliss, luminosity, and no thought to not feel miserable. If this is the case, you already get addicted. If you are addicted, you will definitely go crazy. Even if you are not addicted, but only have light obsession, you will enter the formless realm. Nevertheless, he said no matter what, as long as you are directed to these kinds of attributes, and are filled with the experiences of these three. Of course, if you have experienced it, you will remember very much what state it is, which means you are filled with the experience of it. When they become a state worth pursuing and maintaining. When you can make these states last for 3 minutes this time, you will hope they can last for 4 minutes. Since they only lasted 2.5 minutes last time, and 3 minutes are not long enough this time, it is best to have 4 minutes. Please do not go away. This state must not go away. This is called attachment. It will form a kind of subtle obsession. Or when it suddenly disappears, you are like, oh no, it's gone. This is also called obsession. Oh, it's so close. I don't understand why the state disappeared. I need to look into why it's gone. Why was it there, and why was it gone? You would like to investigate, and find out how it can last longer next time. This is an obsession. This kind of subtle obsession, you are already addicted to this kind of obsession. It is the direct cause of being stuck in samsara for a long time. Pay attention to these few words, being stuck in samsara for a long time. Long means being trapped in reincarnation for a long time. How long will it be? How direct it is? It is necessary to explain how long and how direct it is. How long will it be? As said earlier, it is 80,000 Mohakalpas. Is it long enough? It is very, very long, too long to be calculated. If you use a calculator to count it, the calculator will also crash. It is unclear how many billions of years one kalpa is, let alone 80,000 Mohakalpas. This is just one kalpa, we have yet to count how long an Antakalpa, or an Asankhyakalpa is. It is Mohakalpa that we are talking about here, and what's more, it is 80,000 Mohakalpas. Wouldn't this cause the calculator to crash? This is what being stuck in samsara for a long time refers to. How direct is it? It is to enter directly into the formless realm, followed by falling into the 3 lower realms directly. How direct? When the intrinsic nature appears, it is 100% at first, but in a blink of an eye, it will drop by a few percentages, and you will have already entered the formless realm in no time. How direct would you say this is? What I am talking about now is still considered an indirect situation. That is, the manifestation of the intrinsic nature will gradually decline. And what did he mean by direct here? It is the moment when you die, your intrinsic nature is no longer 100% when it first appears. Because it happens too fast, the intrinsic nature that appears is already a few percentages less. Then you will directly enter the formless realm. That is why Urgyen Rinpoche said it would be very direct. What I have just said is already considered indirect. What is indirect? Indirect means that you can still wait. That is, there is still room for me to make a change, and there is still an opportunity for me to escape. Direct means that there is no chance, no indirection, and no wiggle room. How direct will the situation be afterwards? You will fall directly into the 3 lower realms when you use up all your virtuous merits in the formless realm. Is it direct enough? Most people fail to understand this sentence. Let me explain to you how long and how direct it is. These are the things that people miss in the teaching of the sutras. If they are not mentioned, people will take no notice even after reading them. Well, it is only falling into reincarnation. I'll just be careful. Then you will not even know why you will fall into the lower realms when you die in the future. What is not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind? As said earlier, should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions means that you should not be attached to all scenes even when seeing them. Even if you can realize that they are without intrinsic nature, you still cannot score 100 points by only applying the first oral pith instruction. Now let us talk about the second oral pith instruction, which is considered the most important oral pith instruction. It is even more important than the first one, because there is something more: to develop one's mind. How do you apply developing one's mind to bliss, luminosity, and no thought? You should practice this way. Not to abide anywhere means you must not abide in any forms, appearances, feelings, sensations, and states of bliss, luminosity, and no thought. You must not arouse any idea or thought in the fascinations, conceptual thinkings, or experiences of these states. You must not arouse any of these, as explained earlier. What is to develop one's mind? What kind of mind one must develop? Firstly, it is not the cognition that is produced through any intention, visualization, comprehension, and projection, but the realizing and knowing that arises and manifests naturally. That is, it does not require any effort or action. People often refer to it as being unconditioned Sanskrit, asaskta. This is how you explain unconditioned. It will pop out by itself. It is just that you apply unconditioned in the wrong place. The explanation of unconditioned here is correct. The explanation here is that you do not need to have any intention, visualization, comprehension, or projection. Nothing is needed, and no cognition is generated. It pops out by itself, and it is a kind of realizing and knowing that suddenly appears. Secondly, this kind of realizing and knowing that arises and manifests naturally is called realization. This is the true realization. And if you can realize and attain that intrinsic awareness, it means your intrinsic nature has attained 100% realization. But how long can it last? We call it maintenance, maintaining the realizing and knowing. That is, can you keep it and let it operate spontaneously and naturally? It will depend on your meditational power. In other words, it depends on how you can apply it. In fact, why would one enter the formless realm? It is all because this part is missing. Without having or knowing how to apply this oral pith instruction, one will fail. Is the state of bliss, luminosity, or no thought good or bad? It is neither good nor bad. When it appears, it means that you have cultivated to a certain level. You have achieved some elements, which are correct for you to succeed. But you lack a few things, even the oral pith instruction. What is the oral pith instruction? As stated in the Diamond Sutra, it is not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. The point is whether the guru is able to teach you how to apply not to abide anywhere to bliss, luminosity, and no thought. If they are unable to teach these, there will be a lot of things missing. Indeed, you will be lacking in so many things. Without these things, what would happen to you? You may have to enter the formless realm and stay for 80,000 mohakalpas, followed by downfall into the lower realms to suffer. Do you know how much suffering you have to get through? It is truly miserable. Since bliss, luminosity, and no thought is a characteristic of the intrinsic nature, so when bliss, luminosity, and no thought are manifested through the Dharma practice, do not get carried away. What should you do instead? If you wish to realize the true emptiness, neither existence nor voidness, you need to apply the second oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra, not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. Well, I have explained a lot of things that need to be paid attention to in Dharma practice. If you do not have real practice experience, you will not understand these. Even if you read a sutra, you will not know what it is talking about. You will not understand it. There is so much content stated in the advice from the lotus-born, such as no thought, which is divided into 3 categories. You may not be able to understand it, or you may only be able to interpret it superficially. I reckon you may not be able to explain it at the more advanced level, as it involves some teachings of actual practices. In fact, you have already heard a lot you are not supposed to hear in my teaching. But there are still many that are not explained, because they involve teachings of actual practices, which cannot be taught publicly. The teachings on the actual practices of quiet filtering, calm abiding, shamatha, and penetrative insight, vipassana, meditative concentration, and wisdom need to be taught in accordance with the Diamond Sutra and emptiness, and they will only be taught to our disciples in the future. In what class will they be taught? They will be taught in the advanced classes of the Tibetan Buddhist meditation, on the 7-point postures of Buddha Vairocana. I have taught the Vairocana's 7-point meditation many times, but only to my disciples. However, I only taught them the basics things. There was actually already a lot of content, though. But when I asked my disciples questions, and they were unable to answer, I knew that they had yet to absorb what had been taught. So, how can I move on to teach the advanced levels? Therefore, I have always taught only the elementary classes, that is, the basic classes. Anyway, when they are capable of answering my questions, they can attend the advanced classes. Of course, you must plant virtuous merits. Without virtuous merits, you cannot afford this kind of teaching. I have already said that there are many kinds of virtuous merits. You must plant them all. First of all, you must plant these virtuous merits. Then you have to observe the precepts. If you frequently violate the precepts, there is no use planting virtuous merits. So, you must observe the precepts and know how to answer the questions. Then you can attend the advanced classes and start to receive the Guru's teachings. I have been propagating the holy Dharma publicly for 20 years. But my disciples always fail to answer my questions, or are only able to answer half of the questions at most, which is already considered very good. I feel I am getting old, and it is time to teach those things. Otherwise, I wonder if there will still be a chance to teach them. I do not know. So, we must help them lay a solid foundation before teaching it. How do we help them lay a solid foundation? It is to provide them with a series of courses called the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhicitta. I have to teach them all the content that I have just said and that needs to be taught in the future, so that they can lay a good foundation. At least when I ask them what no thought is, they are able to answer, no thought means that all thoughts are gone. Then, how many categories does it have? They must be able to tell me how many categories there are. How does Guru Rinpoche explain it? How do people out there explain it? You also have to know, right? You should be able to answer all these questions and all the basics I have taught. Only then will it be useful when advances classes are taught later. Otherwise, when I keep saying that you are short of a few things and what the things are, you will only get totally confused. What things are missing exactly? You will not know them yourselves. So, it is necessary to work with the oral pith instructions, as well as the Diamond Sutra. What is Diamond Sutra, then? I must spend some time explaining the Diamond Sutra, before continuing my further teachings. So, I have to start teaching the Diamond Sutra. After that, there is still the great perfection to teach. So, I talked about some oral pith instructions of the Great Perfection in the first few lectures of the series. I will teach all that can be taught publicly. What cannot be taught publicly will be taught in the advanced classes, or other classes for the Great Perfection. These, of course, can only be taught internally. What can be taught publicly, where possible, has already been taught. This is to make you understand. For the content that can be taught publicly, I can only disclose up to this extent. The rest can only be taught to disciples. Why? Is it due to selfishness? Of course not. The reason why these teachings cannot be given in a public Dharma ceremony is that it is impossible to communicate or interact with non-disciples. It is impossible to know if they have practiced it incorrectly, what they think, what their habits are, and how they can be taught according to their needs and abilities. In short, we do not know anything. How do we teach them under such circumstances? If there is no refuge-taking relationship, there is neither understanding nor mutual trust between each other. When they do not believe in you, you also do not trust them. When there is no mutual trust, it will lead to deviations in teaching them. There will be deviations if the teaching is forced, which will cause them to be seriously harmed. The situation is the same as when the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni was asked certain questions, and he chose not to respond. It was not because of laziness that he kept silent. It was because it would make the situation worse by answering them. So, it is better not to answer them. The same goes for this situation. It would be worse if you teach it. So, it is better not to teach it. When you go astray, I cannot save you. In terms of precepts, there are certain precepts a guru must adhere to. That is, they can only give certain teachings to the disciples who have taken refuge from them. Otherwise, they cannot be taught. This is the case. You have already taken refuge from the three jewels, but not from me. You have not developed confidence in me. I have not got to know you and have confidence in you. How can I teach you? Even if you have taken refuge from me, and I have developed confidence in you, I still need to observe whether you have complete faith in your guru, and uphold the precepts, before I can teach you. Otherwise, there will be deviations. After teaching you, if you practice carelessly without observing the precepts, you will be in a mess. The situation is like filling some high-speed petrol for you, and then you all violate the precepts. You will then fall into the realms of hells, hungry ghosts, and animals at a high speed. The outcome will be even worse and detrimental for you. So, these teachings should not be taught to you. That is all about the explanation of bliss, luminosity, and no thought here. Now I will talk about an email again, which is the same email mentioned in the previous lectures in episodes 16, 17, 18, and 19. The person who wrote this email said she felt very beneficial after watching my YouTube channel, which reignited her desire to be saved in this very life. She asked a few questions. The first question is related to the situation of accomplishing the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya when attaining Buddhahood during the Bardo period. She said that she was previously aware that the three kayas of Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya should be fully possessed at the same time as soon as one attains Buddhahood. But when I talked about the accomplishment of the three kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya, I remember it was mentioned in episodes 3, 4, and 5 of the Virtualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhisattva series. I talked about under what circumstances can one become a Dharmakaya Buddha, under what circumstances can one become a Sambhogakaya Buddha, and under what circumstances can one become a Nirmanakaya Buddha. She said that the three kayas seem to be separated like different types of Buddha. She could not understand it, as it seemed to be different from general perceptions. It is actually no different. Because they do not understand those states, they do not know how to explain it to you. I am now telling you that it is only a kind of state, under what circumstances it will appear, and how you should deal with it. I already explained that. This is a profound teaching. Generally speaking, no one can explain it, but I already did. This misunderstanding stems from the fact that no one out there has ever explained this issue. They also do not know how to explain it. That is why this Dharma believer had such a misunderstanding. I have already clarified this in the 16th lecture entitled The Mystery of the Ages Derived from Obtaining the Three Kayas when Becoming a Buddha, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. The second question is that she said after listening to the first lecture of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhisattva series, The Fallacies of the Crazy Wisdom, she did some research on Sojal Rinpoche and felt really sorry about it, as it was such a big scandal. She also came across a very long article written by a famous Rinpoche to discuss this incident, which was somewhat different from my point of view. I directly pointed out Sojal's mistakes. As for that Rinpoche's viewpoints, there were no criticisms basically, although the article was very long. She said that my views were different from his, to which I had already responded. This has been answered in the 16th lecture of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhisattva series, The Mystery of the Ages Derived from Obtaining the Three Kayas when Becoming a Buddha, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. The third question is about the lineage masters of the Kagyu school, who claimed that there are 4 stages prior to attaining Buddhahood. One of the stages is that one must become crazy. I already explained that this was incorrect in the 17th, 18th, and 19th episodes of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhisattva series. Fourthly, she said that she knew an American disciple of this Rinpoche, who had unwavering faith in and a pure view towards his guru. He still held a pure view of him despite, after his guru had harmed so many people. I already explained this in the 19th lecture of the Visualization Practice of Compassion and Bodhisattva series. Now I am going to explain the 5th point. She said, as for the supernatural powers of the Buddha, I used to wonder why it was said that the Buddha left so many traces in the human realm, such as injuries, illnesses, etc. But at the same time, the Mahayana Sutras also mention that the Buddha had great and mighty supernatural powers. Moreover, the Buddhist Tantras, that is, the scriptures of esoteric Buddhism, also state that the Buddha manifested the appearance of the wheel-turning sage king. This is someone really powerful, the ruling king with the help of heavenly beings. He is almost like having psychic abilities, and is not subjected to any limitation of the human world. He taught disciples without being subjected to any limitation of the human world. That is, he was so powerful and not controlled by the laws of causes and effects. Could you tell me whether the Guru has explained these? The word "these" is very vague here. If you do not read it carefully, you will have misinterpreted its meaning. Because this email was actually meant for me, Vajra Master Pema Ladran. So, when she said these, she meant if the above content had been explained by Vajra Master Pema Ladran. This sentence should be interpreted this way. And if yes, where can I see it? Which episode is it? What is the title of that episode? Have these questions been answered? Alas! All esoteric practitioners have misinterpreted it. People became insane when practicing esoteric Buddhism because of this problem, believing they could get away with the law of causes and effects. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni could also get away with it when he was a wheel-turning sage king. Yet you said that he could still fall ill and was unable to escape from the law of causes and effects. Of course not, he should be able to get away with it. This was her understanding. She said that the Mahayana Sutras also state the same. This is her misunderstanding, a result of the misinterpretation of the Buddhist Holy Dharma. The Buddhist Holy Dharma should not be interpreted this way. It is due to her own misunderstanding. Alas! The reason why esoteric Buddhism has become so chaotic now is all because of these wrong ideas. So, this question must be clarified. Let me explain it now. Regarding this issue, please refer to the lecture videos, Supernatural Powers Are No Match for Karma, and The Inconceivable Law of Karma, available on the YouTube TV channel of the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International. Well, the three realms operate on the law of causes and effects. Let me elaborate in greater depth and detail. The fact is that everything is impermanent. Everything will go through formation, persistence, disintegration, and annihilation. Nothing is permanent as you imagine. It is not eternal and unchanging. Yet, if you think that one can escape as long as one has supernatural power, and reaches a very high level in one's Dharma practice, this kind of thinking is all wrong. Let me explain it now. Such situations that occur in the low-level desire realm, that is, this kind of impermanent situation, are very fast and tragic, with lots of restrictions. Whereas in the high-level form realm, this situation is milder, with fewer limitations. Have you noticed, in the descriptions of some sutras, that whenever the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni wanted to demonstrate his great supernatural powers, he would usually do so after entering a meditative state? The sutras will state what kind of samadhi the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni has entered. There are many kinds of samadhi that are different in terms of levels, functions, and amount of energy required to operate. The Lord Buddha would demonstrate his supernatural powers right after emerging from the meditative concentration. So, when would the supernatural powers show? They would show after the Lord Buddha entered a meditative state and then came out of it again. The samadhi he entered would be different each time. When the energy activated by entering a certain samadhi is different, so will the scope or extent of the things to be done. They will not be the same. To put it simply, different states of meditative concentration would allow him to generate different levels of energy to demonstrate different supernatural powers. There has never been a Buddhist sutra stating that supernatural powers can overcome karma. If there were, it means that the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni would have to eat his words for denying his own interpretation of the law of causes and effects and the concept of impermanence that he explained countless times. You would say, that is not the case. The law of causes and effects, he referred to, only governs the sentient beings who have yet to attain Buddhahood. But the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni already attained Buddhahood. How could the law of causes and effects possibly continue governing him? Why do some sutras claim that the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni would suffer from illnesses, assassinations, and many other things? On the other hand, some sutras state that his supernatural powers were extraordinary and remarkable. Which statement is correct? I can tell you that the law of causes and effects will not cease to operate just because you are a Buddha. There is no such thing. It will continue to work. But how do you explain these incidents? Let me explain it now. Many Dharma propagators, especially esoteric Buddhist propagators, will exaggerate the supernatural powers to attract more believers. For example, there have been incidents such as fabricating a Buddhist sutra. How could these things not happen? Do you know how to distinguish its authenticity? You cannot tell whether it is true or false. If they claim that it is preached by the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, you will believe it, won't you? Do you know how to distinguish them? Therefore, falsifying the facts, or the statement claiming that those situations that will only happen in the heavenly realms are happening on this earth is everywhere, making sentient beings very confused. It is to take advantage of the characteristics of the sentient beings who are fond of mysteries, magics, dependence, greed, ignorance, and blessings. They can easily fool you by leveraging any one of these. How easy it is to deceive you. You are greedy, foolish, and dependent. You also like mysteries. Any one of these could be your Achilles heel, which they can use to deceive you, couldn't it? So, many people use such a method to deceive people, yet you still fall to it. Those gurus do not even know how to teach the Buddhist holy Dharma. Yet you said so-and-so guru was very powerful. He just told you how many ghosts he had caught, and did you some favor. That is all. It is very easy to deceive you. In order to conceal the fact that the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni was once ill, being attacked, and so on, as documented in history, some people told sentient beings that it was just a phenomenon of manifestation, nothing but a show. They are best at using the word manifestation. Anyone who aims to deceive ignorant beings will definitely succeed by using the term manifestation, which has been used countless times. They used it all the time, claiming that the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni simply put on a show for you in order to teach you impermanence. It was only to manifest to you. Could it be that the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni staged a play and destroyed the entire country just for the sake of manifestation? His entire family was destroyed. Could it be that he acted out another scene, killing his entire family and the people of his own country? Did he put on a show just to prove to you how impermanent this world is? What is the point of such a performance? Why do you call it a performance, then? Do you know that it is recorded in the sutras that the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's entire country was killed with no one spared? Do you know that the people of the whole country were dead except for those who became monks or nuns? Anyone who did not become a monk or a nun died with no one spared. Was Lord Buddha Shakyamuni acting out and manifesting? Was it only considered great by manifesting that people of his country and his family were killed? Was Lord Buddha Shakyamuni showing how cruel he was? In order to save you, did he put on a show for you by cruelly killing his family and the people of his country? There has never been a Dharma king or Rinpoche who can escape birth, aging, illness, and death. No matter how mighty your so-called guru is, he or she will be subjected to birth, aging, illness, and death. So, they said, my guru has practiced the holy Dharma really well. He's so powerful. I'm telling you that his illness is only a manifestation, only a show, not because he's restricted by the law of causes and effects. Isn't this absurd? Isn't this misleading? Their guru was apparently suffering from severe illness, but they said that was not the case. Next, I will explain everything comes from the mind. Remember, what must we do to be liberated from the shackles of samsara? Is it necessary to have a lot of supernatural powers to be freed from these shackles? Or must you train your mind to get rid of them? The key lies in everything comes from the mind. That is, we must start with mind training to get rid of these constraints. Do you think that you can train your own visualization ability by applying everything comes from the mind until you gain supernatural powers to get rid of the constraints? This is wrong and impossible. If your nature of mind is poor, it does not matter whether you use your mind to visualize the images of any Buddha's Pure Land or deity, there is no way to escape the fate of falling into the three lower realms, hells, hungry ghosts, or animals. In other words, everything comes from the mind does not only represent visualization, but also the nature of mind, whether the nature of mind itself is good and contains correct Buddhist knowledge. This nature of mind is the most important aspect. As for visualization, it should include the practices with forms and without forms. In addition, the program cannot be wrong. As I said earlier, it is no good if the program is wrong when practicing visualization without forms. In fact, the two are a combination, which will not work if either one is missing. If it is to demonstrate cruelty, it is not right. But if the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni was not to show cruelty, what did it mean when his whole country and entire nation were destroyed? It meant these were a fact. It was a fact derived from the law of causes and effects. That is why the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said that the three realms were an ocean of sufferings from which you must be liberated. So, you should stop talking about supernatural powers, misinterpreting the scenes described in the sutras, misunderstanding the causes and consequences, and mistaking the actual environment you are located in reality. You think it would be okay. There should be no problems with the Guru's blessing. There is no need to practice the holy Dharma as long as you have the blessings of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and there is no need to resolve the grievances of your karmic creditors either. You only need to train yourself to have supernatural powers. I am sorry to say that you will definitely be confined by the law of causes and effects. Supernatural powers will not help you for long. Why? If you want to seek luck and avoid calamity, you must first know how virtuous and evil karmic portfolio works. You must also first understand how the law of causes and effects operates. The reason why the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni became ill and was attacked is that all his previous sins had passed the time limit for the mutual cohesion of karma and retribution. Generally, there is no way to completely eliminate it after 3 years. You can only make it a light requital for the heavy karma. Because the complexity of the entanglement and derivation is many times beyond your imagination, it is impossible to resolve it. How can it be resolved if you cannot even identify the root cause? So, you must repent fast as possible. According to the precepts, a certain number of evil retributions will be formed after the passing of an hour. There are names for each of the retributions thus formed, but the names are all ancient texts, which I am unable to recite. It becomes such and such retribution after 2 hours, and such retribution after 3 hours. It starts counting with the ticking of every minute and every second. It is uncertain how many connections will be established after the passing of each minute and each second. Where has it been connected to? How do you know where the connection goes and how to resolve it? So, repent quickly. You say there is no need to be afraid, since you can avoid it in a blink as long as you have cultivated supernatural powers. This is definitely impossible. As long as you keep your physical body in the 3 realms, you will be subject to the karma of the law of causes and effects. After the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni became a Buddha, he kept his physical body in this world to continue teaching sentient beings. As long as there was a physical body, as long as material substances still existed, he would be confined by the law of causes and effects. As for this statement, the Buddha manifested the appearance of the wheel-turning sage king, to teach his disciples without being subjected to any limitation of the human world. I would like to ask the person who wrote the email to tell us from which sutra she came across the statement. Please bring this sutra, and show me the proof. I can guarantee that she will never find one. If she can find one, I would like to study the sutra thoroughly and see if it is fictional and false, because it has violated some facts. Let me continue to explain why so many people always use the term manifestation to deceive you. You need to know how to interpret manifestation, don't you? The chapter on the span of the Tathagata's life of the Sutra of Golden Light states, the Buddha does not enter Mahaparinirvana, neither does the genuine Dharma cease to be. It says that the Buddha does not enter Mahaparinirvana, that is, he does not enter the state of oneness. Then, the genuine Dharma will not perish. Because the Buddha continues to stay in a dualistic or multiplistic state, he will manifest in different forms to teach sentient beings. If you can still learn the Buddhist holy Dharma, it will not die out then, will it? For the benefit of all sentient beings, what is it for? It is for the sake of benefiting sentient beings. He manifests the extinction. In order to benefit sentient beings, the Buddha manifested the extinction. So, people say, isn't this the very sentence that explains manifestation? The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni put on a show in order to help sentient beings, to show all of you that there is extinction. There will be death, the body will be gone, and things will be extinct. Is this not manifestation? It should not be interpreted this way, in fact. The world-honored one is inconceivable, the virtuous merits of the world-honored one are inconceivable. His wonderful body has no other forms. What does it mean by no other forms? There are no other appearances. What does it mean? It means the state of oneness. It is saying that the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's wonderful body is incredible. It is the state of oneness, for which there is neither creation nor destruction. for the benefit of all sentient beings. However, in order to benefit sentient beings, he had to manifest what the dualistic or multiplistic states would be. What will the dualistic or multiplistic state be like? There will be birth and death, subject to the samsara of life and death and the law of causes and effects. Manifestation should be interpreted this way. Manifestation refers to the Buddha not entering the state of oneness and not staying in the state of oneness. As soon as he enters the dualistic or multiplistic state, he manifests that there is extinction, life and death, reincarnation, and subject to the law of causes and effects. This is manifestation. Manifestation is not like what those people explain. He was just performing a show to you. He was just telling you that he was so incredible, as his wonderful body had no other forms. How can it be explained like this? His wonderful body has no other forms means the state of oneness. People read the sutra, but do not know how to interpret it. The Buddha was in the state of oneness. In order to save you, he entered a dualistic or multiplistic state to tell you how miserable it was to be in the dualistic or multiplistic state, where there is extinction. That is, you cannot escape from the law of causes and effects in a dualistic or multiplistic state. That is what it means. This is manifestation. Manifestation means that the dualistic or multiplistic state is no good, as it will have extinction and be subject to the law of causes and effects. This is what it means, not how they have interpreted it. It is to manifest the experience of the existing dualistic or multiplistic state, to allow people to see, my experience is so miserable. I will get ill, be attacked and assassinated. Please pay attention to this interpretation of manifestation. The Buddha used his past causes and conditions, as well as karma, to manifest the reality of how the law of causes and effects operates. How realistic was it? He would still have to suffer from the retributions of those past things that he had not repented fully even after attaining Buddhahood. This is called manifestation. He manifested to you the real situation governed by the law of causes and effects. This is called manifestation, which he used to lead sentient beings into not abiding anywhere and not abiding in notions. Only this is correct. He wanted to tell you that the state of oneness can only be cultivated in this way. Because there will be no extinction if the Buddha stays in the Dharma realm. There is no extinction in the state of oneness. He entered the three realms in order to save sentient beings. As a result, there was a state of extinction. This is a kind of manifestation. It operated according to the law of causes and effects, not forgery. He was not acting or faking it. There were real causes and conditions that led to these sufferings. He did not fabricate the evidence. Based on this principle, he taught sentient beings to apply, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions to enter the Dharma realm. By doing so, they will be able to be liberated from samsara. It is not correct to use the principle of manifestation to guide sentient beings into superstition, total neglection of the causes and effects, violation of the precepts, and loss of realizing and knowing. Because it will cause them never be able to be liberated from samsara. Therefore, many tantric gurus use manifestation to deceive their disciples, making their dharma practices a complete mess. The group of disciples following them will have no way out. So, manifestation can never be interpreted as a kind of performance, acting, or putting on a show for you. It is definitely not about doing some window dressing. The real meaning of manifestation is to display and show the difference between the three realms and the Dharma realm, to encourage people to practice the holy Dharma diligently to enter the Dharma realm. Manifestation is not to display and show that the Buddha can avoid the constraints of causes and effects while being in the three realms. There is no such thing. Because the characteristic of the three realms is limitation by causes and effects. This is the fundamental structure of the dualistic or multiplistic state. When a Buddha enters such a structure, he will be subject to the limitation of this kind of structure. It does not matter which Buddha he is. Once he has entered the dualistic or multiplistic state, he will have to be confined by its limitation. You can check out all the Buddhist sutras. Any Buddha, be it Buddha Amitabha or Buddha of longevity, has a limited lifespan. All sutras state like this: in what world this Buddha lives and how long he lives. You may wonder, isn't the Buddha immortal? The Buddha is immortal in the state of oneness. You are right. A Buddha will not die in that state. However, the physical body he manifests, which connects with his causes and conditions, will die. Any material substance will have creation and destruction, and are impermanent. This is a point that you need to be clear about. To escape this restriction, the Buddha must enter the state of oneness. That is, he must enter the Mahaparinirvana state of the Dharma realm to avoid this restriction. Because the state of oneness is not subject to the fundamental structure of the dualistic or multiplistic state. Alright, I will now tell you a story about the Buddha who still received 10 kinds of retribution despite after attaining Buddhahood. I will only tell you one story, as there is not enough time today. The first story is about Sundari slandering the Buddha, who was falsely accused of rape and murder. Where is the real story of this case recorded? It is in the chapter on the Buddha's seventh Vassa, of the Great Chronicle of Buddhas, also known as Mahabuddhavamsa. Don't you tell me that these are all manifestations of the Lord Buddha. It was the Buddha who manifested being accused of rape and murder. What benefit would it be to teach you this way? What are the benefits of this kind of manifestation by putting on this show? Do not be silly. Please stop misinterpreting manifestation. I will tell you the story now. In this sutra, it is stated that there was a female wandering ascetic by the name of Sundari. She was persuaded by her fellow practitioners to frame the Buddha and his disciples. The rationale they gave was simple: the religious sect we are practicing and the gods we are worshipping now are very great. Our gods are so powerful and can help us with all kinds of things, and their teachings are wonderful. But Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings are all wrong, contradicting what we have learned. They are incorrect and will only get people into trouble. You must save our sect and other people. You must lend us a hand. You are smart, beautiful, and capable. Only you are able to save us. Do you know that some people are religious fanatics? Since you ask me such a favor and think so much of me, I will listen to what you say. So, she decided to help them. What did she do to help? Sundari followed their plan. They already had a plan for Sundari to bring flowers to visit the Jetavana monastery, where the Lord Buddha lived, pretending to listen to the Dharma teachings. She pretended to be an obedient Dharma believer. Interestingly, she would go to listen to the preaching at night and then stay there overnight. The next morning until the next morning, she would walk out from the Jetavana monastery unhurriedly. So, people wondered why there such a beautiful female ascetic would come out early in the morning. She intended to let people know about this first. After doing this continuously for a few more days, it became a regular thing. Eventually, people felt that something was wrong, as she continuously went in at night and came out in the morning for several days. Sundari's fellow practitioners, as you know, they were a group of religious fanatics. This stupid Sundari did exactly as they planned. They did not tell her the whole plan, though. In fact, they did not reveal the latter part of the plan to her. That is, they hired a few people to kill her and buried her body in the garbage pile near the Jetavana monastery. When the news reached the king, he sent people to search for Sundari and found Sundari's body. Such a beautiful female ascetic disappeared a few days after entering the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's Jetavana monastery at night and leaving in the morning. It was a bit unusual. The king must investigate, and he started the search. Sundari's accomplices immediately shouted everywhere in the streets and alleys of the city, "Look at what the Buddha Shakyamuni and his disciples have done. Rape and murder." The people later found the corpse in the garbage pile, which was found after the garbage was moved away. Later, it was not until the king sent people to collect evidence and investigate more meticulously that the charges of the Buddha and his disciples were cleared. This is how it was clarified. After that, Sariputra asked the Lord Buddha, "The world-honored one, why did Sundari want to frame you? Could you please explain its causes and consequences for everyone?" If you think about it further, he was such an honorable Buddha who taught people a lot of Dharma knowledge, all of which were virtuous deeds. Yet, such a sudden incident happened unexpectedly. You know that sentient beings are very ignorant. Do you really think that gossip ends at a wise person's ears? Of course not. You may say, the king already found the truth and proved the Lord Buddha's innocence. Why did Sariputra still want to be so meddlesome and ask for an explanation? People would think like this: didn't you say you're a Buddha? Didn't you say you have supernatural powers? Shouldn't you have known that a woman called Sundari would come to pretend to listen to the Dharma and then die, and you would be framed because of this? You should have stopped Sundari from entering Jetavana monastery from the get-go by keeping the door shut. Or you could let her in, but ask her to leave immediately after the preaching. You should not have let her stay overnight and swagger out of the door the next morning. Nothing would have happened then. Or you could have shown the truth to everyone using your supernatural powers, replaying the scene that happened at that time, in which several people were hired to murder her. You could have used your supernatural powers to conjure up a screen and play a video like this. Sentient beings have many ideas. They would think like this: did the Buddha have no supernatural powers? Were his supernatural powers not strong enough? Why did he not solve this problem? Without solving the problem, the propagation of the entire Buddhism would be ruined. You should know that you are the leader of a religion. If you are ruined, the entire sect will collapse immediately. Many people would have such guesses. As you know, Sariputra was one of Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's 10 principal disciples, among whom his wisdom was second to none. He was extremely intelligent. He went to ask the Lord Buddha, "Do you know that there is a precept in the Bodhisattva precepts called failure to defend oneself against bad reputations? You will violate the Bodhisattva precept if your reputation is ruined and you do not clarify and explain it to people. Why? Because you may implicate others such that they may not dare to continue practicing the holy Dharma." Sariputra knew all these very well. He knew that the Lord Buddha might not take the initiative to explain this matter. Let me ask him. As a disciple, I must do my duty. So, he went to ask the Lord Buddha. The Lord Buddha then explained it. He said that a long time ago, so long that it is incalculable, there was this man called Jingyan, who excelled in singing and acting. There was also a courtesan called Lu Xiang, who was very beautiful. One day, Jingyan asked Lu Xiang out on a date, and Lu Xiang was pleased to accept the invitation. In the evening, they went out of the city together to a forest garden in the suburbs, where they made out all night. At dawn the next day, Jingyan noticed Lu Xiang's clothes were gorgeous and magnificent, and her jewelry was flashy and expensive. Suddenly, he had an evil thought: why not kill Lu Xiang and grab her things? He really killed Lu Xiang and took away all her clothes and jewelries. He then hid Lu Xiang's body in the garden. At that time, there was a Pratyekabuddha called La Wu Wei. What is a Pratyekabuddha? A Pratyekabuddha does not receive any teachings from anybody. The word Buddha is imposed by people, and they are not a real Buddha. No one teaches them, and they have neither gurus nor Buddhist sutras. In short, there was no Buddhist holy Dharma at the time. What did they rely on? Solitary realization, enlightening and awakening by themselves. Seeing the water flow and flowers fall, they realized impermanence by themselves. Then, they realized some Dharma practice methods and cultivated to a level similar to an Arhat. People usually call them Pratyekabuddha, or Arhat Buddha. They put those Dharma practitioners of this level on a pedestal by adding the word Buddha to their titles. They are not the real Buddhas. Only those who have truly entered the state of oneness are called Buddhas. It requires one to have an awareness of perfect enlightenment, without any deviations to be called Buddha. But that is not the case for a Pratyekabuddha, who has virtuous merits and can be liberated from samsara, but not enter the state of oneness. So, the correct title should not include the word Buddha. However, since everyone puts it like this, I will just follow. But I must make this point clear. The Pratyekabuddha, La Wu Wei, lived not far from the place where the courtesan's corpse was hidden. Jingyan thought about planting evidence on this Pratyekabuddha for the killing, so he deliberately placed some of Lu Xiang's clothes by the Pratyekabuddha's thatched cottage early next morning. Lu Xiang was a well-known socialite, who knew many high officials and noble lords. When people could not find her, they reported her disappearance to King Vanda. They were nervous about Lu Xiang's disappearance. King Vanda ordered a thorough investigation around the country, and finally found Lu Xiang's clothes in the garden outside the city. Investigators questioned whether Pratyekabuddha La Wu Wei had raped and murdered Lu Xiang. However, the Pratyekabuddha remained silent and did not answer. Pay attention to these few words: remained silent and did not answer. As a result, the investigators hanged the Pratyekabuddha upside down and tortured him severely. Why did the Pratyekabuddha not speak at all? It was because the Pratyekabuddha clearly understood that all of this was caused by his evil karma in the past, so he decided to face it calmly. He chose silence and did not give any answer. In fact, they had already found Lu Xiang's body. They found the corpse and then looked for her clothes. The clothes were found beside the thatched cottage of that Pratyekabuddha. So, the investigators hung him upside down and tortured him. The Pratyekabuddha chose not to respond either, because he had cultivated to the level of Pratyeka, able to see his own past 500 lives. He knew what he had done before. He knew what retribution he should receive. He did something that hurt others in the past. So, he was being framed by others now. He chose to be silent. Why did he choose to remain silent? Let us continue. There was a big tree in this tree garden, with a tree god living in it. He could not bear seeing the Pratyekabuddha being tortured, so he appeared in front of everyone and sincerely urged them to stop beating up the Pratyekabuddha. He said that the Pratyekabuddha was an accomplished Dharma practitioner, and beating him would have serious consequences. He told them that the Pratyekabuddha did not commit the murder, but no one paid attention to the tree god. Why was there a tree god? Why was it so miraculous? Did people know that he was a tree god? No, they did not. He manifested and urged people not to beat Pratyekabuddha. People did not know that he was a tree god. Everyone ignored him and dragged Pratyekabuddha to King Vanda, accusing Pratyekabuddha of raping and murdering Lu Xiang. King Vanda was furious and ordered the Pratyekabuddha to be tied up and put onto a donkey. He then asked a man to follow beside the donkey, beat gongs and drums along the road, and paraded through the streets. How disgraceful! Having cultivated to such a high position, the Pratyekabuddha could already be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence, and was already a saint at that time. Many people respected him in the past, but he was cast aside at that time, being reviled and humiliated by everyone. No one knew what the Pratyekabuddha was thinking, but you will know shortly. There would always be this situation among people. Some would believe in the Pratyekabuddha, and some would not. There would be a dispute of right and wrong. At that time, Jingyan, the real murderer, was also hiding among the crowd. Seeing this situation, he felt that the Pratyekabuddha was miserable, for he was continuously humiliated and beaten up so badly to the point of breaking his ribs. He was already severely wounded and vomited blood. Yet, he was still tied up and paraded through the streets. He was finally conscience-stricken. He still had some conscience, and could not bear seeing this Saint Pratyekabuddha suffer on his behalf. Hence, he came forward to stop the parade. Jingyan said to the officials, "Let this Dharma practitioner go. He's not the murderer. It's me who killed Lu Xiang." The officials were shocked that they had wronged the Saint Pratyekabuddha. They arrested Jingyan immediately and released the Pratyekabuddha. Everyone realized that they had made a huge mistake this time. So, they knelt before the Pratyekabuddha together and asked for forgiveness. Note that they already repented right away. Jingyan also already repented. It was just that he only did so after many days, but not right away, or on the same day. On the other hand, this group of people knelt down immediately, apologizing to the Pratyekabuddha and confessing, "We are too stupid to know the truth. We've wronged you. We really hope you can forgive our sins." The Pratyekabuddha Lu Wuwei remained silent and said nothing. Why? Because as long as he responded, "I forgive you. I accept your confession," didn't it mean that he was responding? Didn't responding mean planting a cause? He was not taught the true Buddhist holy Dharma, but he realized it by himself. When he saw the cause and effect of the past 500 lives, he felt that if he planted a cause, there must be an effect. It would be better not to say anything. But there was a kind of compassionate gleam revealing in his eyes. He knew that his evil karma had vanished, and his relations with this world had also come to an end. He decided to pass away. So, he displayed his supernatural powers in public by flying into the sky and going back and forth 7 times. Finally, he smoked all over his body. That is, he used his mental strength to ignite some fire. He did not really start the fire with wood. Rather, he used his own visualization to initiate his body's energy to light some fire. As such, smoke, fire, and water were emitting all over his body. An arhat has this kind of supernatural power. He liberated himself by burning his body in the air. The flesh burned out and died. At this point, everyone knew that a saint had been wronged, as it turned out that he was actually so powerful. They felt very sad, knelt and repented. After that, people had Jingyan executed. The Lord Buddha said to Sariputra, "Do you know who Jingyan was at that time?" "Jingyan was my previous incarnate." Jingyan was actually Lord Buddha Shakyamuni's previous incarnate, while Lu Xiang was today's Sundari, and King Vanda was the police officer who investigated the killing of Sundari today. It turned out to be so serious. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni did such a thing in his previous life. What were the consequences? The Lord Buddha said to Sariputra and all his disciples in public, "Sariputra, I killed Lu Xiang and framed the Pratyekabuddha then. I committed 2 serious evil karma. As a result, I fell into hell for countless thousands of years, that is, it is impossible to tell how many billions of years have passed, and I suffered the punishment of being boiled, that is, being thrown into a wok and boiled, and the punishment of being forced to climb the sword tree, that is, being continuously stabbed by swords, etc. After suffering all these, I fell into the realm of animals and took rebirth as an animal for millions of years, that is, countless thousands of years. And after countless thousands of years or millions of years, I fell into the realm of hungry ghosts. Until this time today, I still have not paid it off. Although I've attained Buddhahood, I still have to put up with the remaining evil karma from the past. That is, some remaining evil karma has not yet been retributed. Although I have attained Buddhahood, I still have residual evil karma that needs to be repaid, let alone other major ones. That's why I was slandered and framed by Sundari. The Lord Buddha told Sariputra, "Look, I've already attained Buddhahood. Although I have inconceivable virtuous merits, I still cannot avoid the entanglement of the evil karma from past lives. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni already told you that this was not acting. It was real. Would he put on a show to slander himself and damage his own reputation, the reputation of Buddhism, and the reputation of his disciples? Of course not. He would not be so foolish. It means that this is true. The causes and effects are real. What's more, what about those ordinary people who have not yet been enlightened? Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said that as a Buddha, he still had to suffer such serious retribution. Do you think ordinary people will also have to suffer the retributions of causes and effects? Of course, they will. So, you have to take notice of this. Some people may doubt, really? You already fell into hell for tens of millions of years, and were boiled and forced to go up the sword tree. There is no reason why you have not paid it back completely. I suppose Jingyan surely already repented after a few days. But it is not stated in the sutra. So, we do not know. By right, he must have already repented. Everyone knelt and repented before the Pratyeka Buddha. There was no reason he did not do likewise. Perhaps there were a few days of delay. He did not confess immediately, but only did so after a few days of delay. But that does not explain why he had to be boiled and forced to climb the sword tree for millions of years, and still had not paid it off. He had to be reborn as an animal for countless millions of years. He had gone through so much, yet the retributions were not over. He still had to fall into the realm of hungry ghosts for again countless millions of years. Now that he had attained Buddhahood, he still had to be slandered. Was it even necessary to have such severe retributions? Are causes and effects so complicated? Isn't it one-to-one? I can tell you that for every second that passes, it is immediately no longer one-to-one, for it will get connected to others. For example, there are many bystanders in the spiritual realm, some of whom may say, "Well done with the killing," after watching what you did. And so there will be more evil thoughts in their minds. Being greedy is good. It is clever to frame others by simply leaving someone's clothes over there. As such, more people will fall victim. Think about it. How many people will be harmed because of your behavior if there is 1 second of delay in repenting? You will have your equal share of responsibility for the evil karma committed by those people, for their killings, framing others, and all the evil karma they have committed. Why should I be held responsible? Of course, do you think it is only one-to-one now? Do not wait even a second. Repent immediately. These are all taught in the precepts of Buddhist sutras. You should repent at the fastest speed. Suppose you could do so at the fastest speed of 9.9 seconds. No, it will not do at 9.9 seconds. It should be 1.1 seconds. In that case, you will have a chance to succeed. Then, there is a chance for it to be one-to-one. After 1 second, it may already become 1 versus 1,000. After 2 seconds, it could be 1 versus tens of thousands. It goes up geometrically. It is frightening. Just think about it. When you have your retributions in the future, you will be cooked and boiled, and you will fall into hell. When he killed Lu Xiang, he may have stabbed her a few times. Suppose he stabbed her 10 times. How many times would he have to be stabbed on the sword tree, then? Think about it. How many times must he be stabbed each time he climbed up the sword tree? And how many millions of years he had to endure being stabbed? You may say, how unfair this is. Didn't you say Buddhism is fair? Why do I stab people 10 times and have to be stabbed back several million times? The reason is that the number will be multiplied and rise geometrically. For anyone who sees your scene and repeats the same crime, you will also have your share for the evil karma they commit. When all these are being added together, it is much worse than compound interest and more serious than a usurious loan. But these are all natural phenomena and not man-made. It happens automatically. That is why it will be so miserable. It turns out that these small remaining karma cannot be paid off completely even after you have suffered so much. Just a few days, only a few days of delay, and it has already become so serious. There is one more matter. There are two serious evil karma. He was slandering a great saint, not only an ordinary person. Some sentient beings in the spiritual realm would say, "What? You're slandering that great saint. I really admire him and like listening to what he says. How dare you slander him? I will definitely not go easy on you." They would add their hatred onto you. You would then have your share for any evil karma they do afterwards, because it is you who arouse their hatred. That is no good. You will have your share for all the evil karma committed by people who either praise your behavior or loathe your behavior. You have a share for all these, let alone two serious sins. That is how it leads to serious sins, because that person is not an ordinary one, but a saint. If the person is an ordinary person, his or her relatives will hate you. You will have a share of the evil karma they do in the future. How serious do you think it is? So, there will still be some minor remaining karma even if you keep repaying it, and you still have to endure it even after attaining Buddhahood. Therefore, the Lord Buddha did not accept this slander just to manifest the law of causes and effects, but he was really willing to accept the minor karma left over by the evil causes he planted that day. Even if the Lord Buddha regarded himself as a noble person who had attained Buddhahood, and did not wish, or did not want to accept the remaining retribution of the leftover karma, it was still impossible for him to resolve it with supernatural powers. People tend to think this way. Firstly, they called his manifestations acting, which I have already told you now that was not the case. Secondly, those tantric gurus said that if it was not a manifestation, it could be solved by supernatural powers. I can tell you now that it is impossible. Because when you use supernatural powers to resolve it, it means that you are unwilling to accept the causes and effects, that is, adding a new cause to it, manifesting supernatural powers against the law of causes and effects. Do you know that this will make things even more complicated? What would happen? The increased complexity is that a new cause has been added, and the new cause will generate a new effect. So, everyone follows suit. If you want to avoid responsibility in the future, it is very simple, just use supernatural powers. So, everybody does the same, and for any resulting delay in their retributions, which make their entangled evil karma even worse, you will also have a share. The severity will be colossal. It will not be one-to-one anymore. Therefore, if the Lord Buddha did this, he would not be able to attain Buddhahood, and he would not be able to enter the state of oneness. He would never do such unnecessary things. If other people do it, it will not really solve the problem. It only makes the hatred more deeply entangled. Therefore, we cannot delay repentance or delay repaying. If your enemy has finally come to your door and found you, they have appeared in front of you and demanded vengeance on you, you must find a way to pay them off. But you can use your wisdom and come up with ways of repaying it. You can communicate with them, "Is it okay if I pay you off this way? Or perhaps I can do some merits and dedicate them to you, so you can quickly get rid of this painful body and reincarnate in a better place." You can use the way of negotiation, compensation, and repentance to resolve the hatred of the other party. It is okay to resolve it like this. It will work. Is it okay to use supernatural powers? No, it is not. Why? Because it will be delayed, and if it is delayed, the connection will persist longer. In the future, the interest will be compounded and the hatred will be deepened. They will only hate you more. You can avoid me this time, but I will not let you escape next time. Initially, I was going to stab you 1,000 times this time. It will be 10,000 times when you are caught next time. It will become like this. As you can see, any dispute is the same and must be resolved as soon as possible. Any dispute will become more complicated if you delay resolving it, and the hatred will be deepened. Then, things will go really bad, and you will end up with a miserable ending. Be careful. It will also make more people think that they can avoid the causes and effects if they have supernatural powers, and they will plant a bigger evil cause. The result, of course, is to make these people trapped in a worse quagmire of causes and effects. Hence, many people think that having supernatural powers through Dharma practice is the same as avoiding the law of causes and effects. This kind of teaching is extremely wrong and misleading. They do not understand the Buddhist holy Dharma that can free one from suffering. You have no idea at all about the genuine Buddhist holy Dharma that can free you from suffering. So, this believer's email discusses the reason that the Lord Buddha manifested his supernatural powers was to avoid the causes and effects and use them to teach his disciples and sentient beings. That is absurd. She said, the Buddha manifested the appearance of the wheel-turning sage king to teach his disciples without being subjected to any limitation of the human world. Teaching disciples that supernatural powers are completely free from the restriction of causes and effects, this statement is impossible. No way. This is because she learned the Buddhist holy Dharma incorrectly and misunderstood the Dharma. But I know that many tantric gurus teach like this. So, she wrote and asked me to explain. She wondered how I would explain this. I can tell you that this kind of teaching is very wrong and misleading sentient beings. Anyone who thinks and practices the holy Dharma following these incorrect arguments will fall into the 3 lower realms, because they have planted a huge evil cause. So, you must not believe in such a ridiculous argument. Remember, the real way to resolve hatred is to repent quickly and thoroughly. After a second has passed, it will not be a one-to-one retribution. The retribution will surely be connected. After 3 years, it can no longer be erased. There will be a chance to erase it through confession or Dharma practice within 3 years. After 3 years, you can only make it a light requital for the heavy karma. Do remember this. Now let us talk about 2 things you need to pay attention to in this case. The investigators questioned Pratyekabuddha La Wu Wei whether he had raped and killed Lu Xiang. Pratyekabuddha, solitary realization, which means enlightening and awakening by oneself, he remained silent and did not respond at all. You should know that he enlightened and awakened all by himself, which means he never received any precepts. So, he was not aware of the precept, failure to defend oneself against bad reputations. But he did not do so either. Why? His behavior was one that belongs to should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. He did not abide in any states. That included not abiding in the states of being framed, tied up and beaten, and paraded through the streets. He did not abide in any of these states, but accepted all of them. So, did he manage to achieve not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind? He realized and knew that these were amassed karmas from countless past lifetimes, as he could see the causes and effects of one's past 500 lives. He knew that he must repay the debt. Otherwise, he would not be able to enter nirvana, that is, he would not be able to be liberated from the cycle of karmic existence. He was afraid that there would be some hindrances in the future when he died if the debt left unpaid, leading to deviations in his Dharma practice. As a result, he would not be able to enter the state of being liberated from samsara, and he could not enter nirvana. Also, to be honest, sometimes they like to cultivate forbearance. I have a disciple who has practiced the holy Dharma for many years, but has psychological trauma. He has been often haunted by the childhood memory of being abandoned and going through a lot of suffering. Therefore, he is very afraid of being abandoned by others. It has become a kind of phobia, a fear deep in his heart. After he got married, he found that he could not get along with the other half. He has always wanted to get a divorce, but has never been successful. He has been following us to practice the holy Dharma. I am very strict with my disciples, who are required not to violate the precepts. They are not allowed to deal with their spouses in a vicious way or force a divorce. They must observe the precepts well and cannot violate them. So, he just used the method of holding back his emotions when dealing with anything, thinking that what he did was consistent with the Buddhist holy Dharma and the practice of one of the 6 paramitas, forbearance. He just kept on putting up with it. He still wanted to get a divorce very much, but he could not do it. His wife refused to divorce no matter what, and he could not force her either. So, he did not know what he could do. As a result, he ended up with depression. So, he came to me and said, "I'm very depressed. I've been losing sleep, Guru Master. I need to take medicines and see a therapist." I wrote him an email and asked him to follow what I taught to a disciple, who came out to confess not long ago, during July's Upavasata. She burst into tears, saying she did not get along well with her husband and was heartbroken. I told her, and also told this disciple now, you must remember what to do when it comes to the practice of forbearance. I think forbearance, tolerance of shame, is actually not well translated. Do you know that there is a kind of meditational power involved according to the original meaning of forbearance? If you do not find a way to resolve the pain, nor do you understand how the Buddhist holy Dharma should be applied to mind training, you are totally clueless about how to train your mind. So, you resort to tolerance instead. You just keep on tolerating everything. As a result, there will be a lot of negative energy and negative thoughts trapped in your thinking and body. After you have tolerated it for a while, the negative energy will impact all your internal organs, nervous system, and body. You will be prone to depression then. You will be trapped in your thoughts. Your negative energy will be so tremendous that it will take a heavy toll on your mind as well as your body. You will experience both physical and mental trauma. And you can easily suffer from depression. Why would you practice the holy Dharma this way, then? So, I explained to my disciples during the previous Upavasata, remember, it is not tolerance. How do you write tolerance in Chinese? There is a knife stuck into the heart. This is called tolerance. You will not succeed with a knife stuck into the heart. We want to resolve that matter. The real practice is about transformation. Take a look at the Pratyeka Buddha. He was beaten up to the extent of vomiting blood, tied up, and paraded through the streets. He was silent and showed no resentment. He even showed a compassionate gleam in his eyes when he was released. Do you think he was cultivating forbearance, or had already transformed that matter? I can tell you that he was not cultivating forbearance. He truly realized and knew that these were amassed karmas from countless past lifetimes, and he accepted it. He'd accepted that it was right to be beaten and paraded through the streets now. Yes, he was willing to accept it, because he saw through the causes and effects of the past 500 lives. My disciple has not cultivated to this level yet, and cannot see through his own causes and effects. I wrote to him and told him that it was all because he had the fear of being abandoned since he was a child, plus these few years of inharmonious married life. Yet, he was unable to get a divorce, so he could not bear it and thus suffered from depression. I advised him to train his mind well. I had already taught the mind training procedure at the previous Upavasata in the July and asked him to practice it. He replied, "I'm sorry that I didn't take any notes. Is it possible to replay the video so I can take notes?" I said this was not possible for 2 reasons. Firstly, I was very busy, and I was still working on the lecture notes for today's Dharma teaching. I had not finished it at that time. There was still 1/3 unfinished. It was impossible for me to edit a video for you to watch. I really have too much on my plate, and it is impossible to agree to such a request from a disciple. Take responsibility for yourself, and take notes if you think it is important. It is impossible for me to edit the video for you just because you did not take any notes. These videos cannot be edited by other people, as they have other people's confessions which are private. I have to edit them by myself and decide which parts can be kept and which cannot. These videos are concerned with the privacy of others and must not be leaked. I can only keep them by myself and will not let others watch them. How can I continue to be a guru if I have to do this? That will mean I do not need to sleep at all. So, I told him that I was very busy and could not do this. Also, it needs to be agreed upon by the disciple who did the confession. In fact, the disciple in question has asked me in writing not to replay the video due to privacy. I would definitely not do it. I told this disciple, I'm afraid that the video isn't available to watch. He then said, you wrote and asked me to follow the mind training procedure, but I didn't take notes and cannot remember what you said. He missed what I said, because he was dozing off at the time and very sleepy. Of course, I knew it. Since it is impossible to ask you to edit the video, what should I do? He said, I won't be able to learn the mind training procedure. You said you would help me. If I hadn't read your email, I wouldn't have known I trained my mind poorly. He thought that he was already good at mind training. How could you still say I did not train my mind well with so much forbearance? How was it still not good when I practiced forbearance to the point of getting myself into depression? I already said at the Upavasata that day that it was not about forbearance, but transformation. Look at this Pratyeka Buddha, who applied transformation. What did he transform it into? He transformed it into realizing and knowing. He realized and knew that those were amassed karmas from countless past lifetimes. You might say, I do not have such supernatural powers as he did. If you do not have supernatural powers, you should realize and know the Buddhist holy Dharma taught by your gurus. Any retribution that you are receiving now is the result of all the virtuous and evil karmas accumulated over your past lives. You must believe in what the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said. You must believe in it. Believe it. You must still believe it even without the realizing and knowing. You are miserable now and cannot get a divorce. You must know that these are what you should get. You are still being tortured by your wife. It is right to be tortured by your wife. You will be pleased just like me and accept it with a smile. There is nothing else you can do about it. Just transform it into a realizing and knowing, and accept it. So, I told him, since you're unable to watch the clipped video, I'll give you a hint as to how I taught it that day. I said that the first step of mind training is acceptance. You will suffer a lot if you do not accept it. Once you do not accept it, you will think about how to escape. If the Pratyeka Buddha attempted to escape, it would not be so easy for him to enter nirvana right away. Didn't he burn himself to death in the air? It was a public suicide. He was not supposed to commit suicide in public. Do you know that? No, it is against the precepts. But he did have very limited knowledge about the Buddhist holy Dharma, because he got enlightened and awakened all by himself. He did not know that there were so many precepts, and that there would be so many entanglements of causes and effects. He only knew that according to the karmic portfolio of his past 500 lives, he would pay off everything as soon as he had this retribution over. That was why when everyone confessed to him, he did not say a word. Had he responded to them, he would have planted yet another cause and continued entangling with them. He did not know that he must leave a condition to save sentient beings. No, he did not. He did not even leave this condition behind. He was like, no, I won't give any response. I will not say that I accept your confession, nor will I say that I forgive you. Anyhow, I will leave no trails behind. I am leaving now. I am burning myself to death. I am off. He did not respond because of this, but he did have a kind of realizing and knowing in it. So, as for not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind, what was the mind he developed? He realized and knew that these were amassed karmas that he must pay off. Otherwise, he would not be able to burn himself to death shortly to enter nirvana with peace of mind. He was exactly thinking like this. Was it right or wrong to have such a thought? I will talk about this later. But this was his thought back then. We call this not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. He really did not have any attachments anymore. He was really not abiding. He managed not to abide anywhere. He also developed a mind to accept it. He realized and knew that he must accept it. So, the first step of our mind training procedure is acceptance. If you do not accept, you will definitely suffer. Look at the Pratyeka Buddha, who was beaten to the point of vomiting blood, paraded through the streets, and humiliated. He just accepted all of it with no pain in his mind. He never suffered. Perhaps he could foresee, once it was paid off, people would release me. Then, I could burn myself to death. He might have thought like that. But it also tells you that the reason why we suffer is because we do not accept the reality. Not accepting the retribution we have is derived from the evil karma accumulated over our past lives. Because we do not accept it, we feel pain. We also feel that we are practicing the holy Dharma, and so we must cultivate forbearance. We feel that we are enduring all day long. This means that we are abiding in our own negative energy. I can tell you that the negative energy will definitely be trapped in your mind, making you unbalanced physically and mentally. This will cause depression. So, I reprehended that disciple for not cherishing my teachings at all. I have already taught you how to your mind. But it turned out that you were dozing and did not take any notes. Then, you put the responsibility on me and asked me to show you that video. This is not allowed. In order to be able to help this disciple, I will explain a little of what I said that day. I said, remember, it is not forbearance, but transformation. Secondly, remember that the first step of the mind training procedure is acceptance. Well, let us talk about the Pratyeka Buddha, who decided to enter nirvana and burned his body in public. This was a public suicide, and he thought he had paid off all his debts. The fact is that he still had slight defilement of being conceptualizations, mental fascinations, and experiences of dualistic mind. That is why he committed suicide. That is also the reason why he was unable to enter Mahaparinirvana to attain Buddhahood. He was only able to enter nirvana to be liberated from samsara. That is, he could only enter the 5 heavens of non-returning at best. It was impossible for him to enter the state of oneness. If he did not commit suicide publicly, and after receiving the retribution, and when people confessed to him, he accepted it and was willing to leave a condition to save sentient beings in the future, he would truly understand what the law of causes and effects was. He would also know that he was actually living in a dualistic or multiplistic state, and he ought to act correctly as per the dualistic or multiplistic state. He should not have only thought about, I want to enter nirvana. I want to enter Mahaparinirvana. Or, I want to die. Okay, I can die once it is paid off. In that case, he would not have committed suicide in public. The fact of him committing suicide in public means that he still had defilement of being conceptualizations, mental fascinations, or experiences of dualistic mind. That is why he did it. And because of that, he did not score 100 points in should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. He also failed in accomplishing the true realizing and knowing of perfect enlightenment, of not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. So, he did not score 100 points for all these aspects. If he re-enters the three realms from the five heavens of non-returning in the future, he will have to receive the retributions of the public suicide he committed that day. He will not be able to escape. According to the Ekatara Agama Sutra, it states, one day, Ananda, an attendant who took care of the Lord Buddha, and was one of the 10 principal disciples of the Lord Buddha, came to the Lord Buddha, and said to him emotionally, the Lord Buddha is the most honored body among devas. Why is your skin so wrinkled now? It's getting loose and aging. Why is it not good as before? The Lord Buddha replied, as you can see now, the skin and flesh of my body are getting saggy and aging. It is not as good as before. Why is it so? Because it is flesh and blood. That is, the structure of material substances. It will certainly be plagued by sickness and pain. It means that there must be birth, aging, illness, and death. It will be constrained by illness and troubled by death. That is, one will be troubled by death. I am over 80 years old this year, and have already declined. This is a natural phenomenon. It is not surprising. Lord Buddha Shakyamuni explained that as long as a physical body remains, it is still subject to the law of causes and effects. When Ananda heard this, he felt mournful and grieved. He said sadly, is aging so helpless? One day, the Lord Buddha and Venerable Ananda went into the city to beg for food. They walked to the royal palace of King Pasenadi, and saw dozens of royal carriages, which were dilapidated, and could no longer be used. They were all thrown aside and discarded. After seeing it, Ananda said, these royal carriages were so gorgeous and exquisite in the past, but today they are cast aside like tiles and stones. The Lord Buddha responded, as you can see now, these carriages used to be so gorgeous and beautiful. They were all made of gold and silver, but now they are all ruined and unusable. You see, these external objects will all deteriorate, let alone your physical body. The Lord Buddha and Ananda entered the palace together. When King Pasenadi saw the Lord Buddha coming for alms, he immediately prepared a lot of food to make offerings to the Lord Buddha. After the Lord Buddha had eaten, King Pasenadi asked the Lord Buddha, Buddha, it is said that all the Buddhas who appeared in the world in the past have the diamond indestructible body. But why do I see you so old now? Could it be that the Buddha also has birth, aging, illness, and death? He did not say birth. He asked if a Buddha also would have aging, illness, and death. The Lord Buddha said, as you can see, Your Majesty, a Buddha also has birth, aging, illness, and death. I am also a human being. I was born into the royal family of India. If I did not become a monk, I would have become the wheel-turning sage king that rules the world. That is, a king. When the Lord Buddha left the palace, he returned to the monastery. The Lord Buddha said to the bhikshus, there are 4 things that all human beings like: being young and strong, healthy and disease-free, long-lived, and being together with the loved ones. The Lord Buddha said, there are also 4 things that all human beings dislike: turning from young and strong to weak and old, from healthy to ill, death, and being separated from the loved ones. He said, bhikshus, be it gods, human beings, or even the wheel-turning sage kings, Buddhas and Bhagavan, no one can escape these things. Pay attention to the wheel-turning sage kings. Didn't the believer email to say that some sutras claim that the Lord Buddha was no longer subject to any limitations of the human world while propagating the holy Dharma after he became the wheel-turning sage king? This argument has been rejected. This is what Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said in the Ekatara Agama Sutra himself. He said that even a wheel-turning sage king cannot escape these things. Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said, if you fail to be awakened to the above 4 unpleasant things, you will reincarnate in life and death. If you cannot realize and understand these 4 things, you can never change them with supernatural powers or anything else. As long as you exist in a world of a dualistic or multiplistic state, you will definitely be like this. If you do not realize and understand these things and still do not wish to get rid of these annoying things, you will continue to wander in the 5 worlds of heavens, humans, animals, hells, and hungry ghosts. You will reincarnate. You and I are all practicing the 4 dharmas of the sages, or the 4 noble truths: suffering, accumulation, or origination, cessation, and path. That is, how we can see clearly the nature of suffering, as explained earlier. One should be determined to find out how the suffering is accumulated, how to make it disappear, and what method to be used, these 4 extraordinary matters. The Lord Buddha said, one must cultivate like this and follow this path, before one can completely cut off one's desire for life and death, so there will be no more afterlives. Please pay attention to the phrase "be awakened to." It tells that everyone will still have to continue reincarnation, if they are still obsessed with supernatural powers, and do not truly practice the holy Dharma. The Lord Buddha said, now my body is already aging. This is a natural phenomenon. Since there is life, it should be subject to the retribution of aging. He said that these were all natural phenomena. So, bhikshus, you should pursue the eternal peace and nirvana. That is, you must seek to enter the state of oneness. To escape from the entanglement of birth, aging, illness, death, and the joys and sorrows of separations and reunions. Let us look at it should be subject to the retribution of aging, which is the first step in our mind training procedure. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni also said, please accept this fact. Suppose you do not accept it, still feeling that you will become very beautiful one day when you go to the realms of heavens in the future. You yearn to become a fairy, or heavenly being to have a beautiful appearance. If you still have such thoughts, you will continue reincarnating forever. We must accept this fact. The second step should be the pursuit of eternal peace and nirvana. So, I taught my disciples the second step of the procedure at the Upavasata that day. The second step of the mind training procedure is questioning. You have to question yourself, why am I so painful now? Why do I have depression? Why do I often quarrel with my spouse? Why do I have an inharmonious family? You will ask a lot of questions, and you will develop wisdom when doing so. So, you have to ask questions to yourself. Some may say, no, asking questions to oneself like this will only make oneself more entangled and depressing. I cannot think about these things. Then ask your guru. When you raise more questions, your guru will say, okay, I'll now teach you the mind training procedure. It turns out that guru already taught it in the last class. But I fell asleep, unaware that you have already taught that. This is still considered a willingness to learn. In view of your eagerness to learn, the guru will surely praise you. Although you dozed off, rest assured that I will not blame you. I will praise you, as you still want to continue training your mind. So, I will re-explain the mind training procedure. Although it is not as detailed as the teaching given that day, I have repeated the 2 steps. It is good to review the first 2 steps for you to learn more. Why questioning? Questioning is to awaken the enlightening and awakening ability. Questioning enables us to awaken our wisdom and enlightening and awakening ability. If you cannot find the answer when you question yourself, you can ask your guru, and the guru will explain more to you. If you do not ask questions, how can your guru know what you do not understand? You will not be awakened, then. Owing to the merit of this disciple, I especially mention the mind training procedure that I explained before in today's class. The second step is questioning. On that day, I also taught that disciple how to ask her husband. Her husband is also a Dharma practitioner. The disciples found my teaching very interesting. Of course, it had to be taught in a casual manner. The disciple was crying at the time. Of course, she must be taught to laugh. We are not supposed to teach her to continue crying, are we? So, you must remember that the second step is questioning. In the future, you will slowly find out why questioning can help you. Why is questioning the second step of the mind training procedure? Because when your focus is no longer on the suffering, but have accepted it, you will no longer abide in the notion of suffering so much. What notion will you abide in then? The elevation of wisdom and awakening ability. What does it rely on? Questioning. Why am I crying so miserably? Why do I always feel that I am miserable? Why can't I untie this knot? Why do I always fail to get a divorce? You will ask your guru, then. Your guru will tell you, you have not suffered enough. Of course, you cannot get a divorce. Because you owed her so much before, you must suffer the same amount of retribution before you can get a divorce. To be able to get a divorce, you will definitely need more wisdom to deal with it. You will make it if you do repentance, won't you? These things are to be taken slowly. The first step of this mind training procedure, acceptance, is the first oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra that we practice. Should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. If you can do it, accepting it, you are capable of not abiding in any notions. You will no longer abide in notions after accepting it. You will no longer be trapped in this predicament. Then, you are capable of not abiding in notions. If you are able to do the second step of the mind training procedure, questioning, you will be able to achieve not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. Asking yourself questions repeatedly will develop your mind of enlightening and awakening. You will finally come to an answer with an epiphany. This is to develop one's mind. You must know that these are the methods for practicing the two oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra in daily life. They are also the two fundamental steps of the mind training procedure. Otherwise, you will not succeed in your Dharma practice. But we cannot ascend to heaven in a single bound. You cannot stop abiding anywhere just by saying it. You cannot develop your mind just by saying it. We have to take things slowly, right? We must remember these two steps whenever we come across things that upset us, or things considered a joy and a success. If I'd accept my success, I must also accept my suffering. I ask questions about the way to success that I have yet to understand and also ask myself questions about the truth of my suffering. Why am I suffering? This is how you slowly work together with the two oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra and the two steps of the mind training procedure to practice the Holy Dharma. I have thus begun to provide the teachings of how to apply the Diamond Sutra to daily life, and I will provide such teachings one after another in future lectures. For the person who sent this email to the Guru asking to edit the video for him, I consider his questioning a merit. It means that if my future Dharma teachings help anyone, or can successfully help people apply the Diamond Sutra to their daily lives to succeed in their mind training, he will have his share of these merits. With more merits, he will not be so easily depressed. The Ekatara Agama Sutra has already clarified the question raised by this Dharma believer who emailed me. She said, the Buddha manifested as the wheel-turning sage king, to teach disciples, and was not subjected to any limitation of the human world since his supernatural powers were so great. I have already answered all these questions. They have been answered in the Ekatara Agama Sutra. Note that great supernatural powers, and no human limitations, are all errors of view. Now a large number of tantric gurus are misleading sentient beings with such erroneous views and exaggeration of supernatural powers. I will give another example of erroneous view. A Dharma believer has asked me a question and hopes I can answer it. He said that he saw this with his own eyes. A very famous exoteric Buddhist monk asked an esoteric Buddhist Rinpoche a question: when you practice visualization, you visualize to dedicate the entire Mount Sumeru to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. But there are countless sentient beings on the Mount Sumeru. May I ask if you have ever asked all those sentient beings whether they are willing to be offered to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas when you do the visualization? This Dharma believer was taken aback, wondering if he would have violated the precept of stealing when he visualized offering the entire Mount Sumeru to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas without asking the consent of all sentient beings. So, he did not dare to practice esoteric Buddhism anymore. He hopes that I can answer his question before he considers continuing to practice esoteric Buddhism. My answer is, everything comes from the mind. Space never has a limit, because everything comes from the mind. So space has no limits. In terms of size, there are no obstacles either. The Avatamsaka Sutra states, each and every particle of the pure land of Buddha Vairocana exhibits its own world. Every speck of dust has a world. In one universe, there will be many small universes. In each universe, there is yet another universe. It is endless. There will be one after another when going further in, just like an infinite overlapping reflection of lights in the mirror. In addition, scientists have recently discovered that our so-called space can go up to the 11th dimension at most. With their abilities, they can only discover so much for the time being. As for these spaces, how limited they are. Will there be any limitations at all? The Lord Buddha said, there are thousands of the 33 heavens within thousands of worlds. This means that space is endless. The Avatamsaka Sutra also states, in one skin pore, there are 1,000 pieces of lotus petals. It means that not only is there no limit in terms of space, but there are also no obstacles in terms of size. In other words, there will not be the sole existence of Mount Sumeru that contains sentient beings. In fact, there exists endless Mount Sumeru. Therefore, when we visualize, it can be infinite, because everything comes from the mind. So, when you visualize offering Mount Sumeru to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, it may not include the sentient beings, who do not consent to be visualized as you imagine. Because the visualization is triggered by me, it will only contain the sentient beings visualized by me and derived from me. Of course, it will have my consent. My consent is their consent, because they are derived from me. They are me, and I am them. That is the meaning of in one skin pore, there are 1,000 pieces of lotus petals. There is me in you, and there are you in me. That is, there will be no such thing that you must ask the permission of that particular sentient being to be included in your visualization, to be offered to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Because you are not visualizing other sentient beings, but the Mount Sumeru and sentient beings visualized in your own mind. They are manifested by your mind. How can there be a question of disagreement? Since the visualization is created by you, it must belong to you. You do not need to ask the permission of anyone, and you do not violate any precept of stealing. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni revealed in the Mahayana Sutra of Mind-Ground Contemplation, Volume 1, Preface Number 1, you worldly people, do not visualize your own minds, that is, not using visualization for mind training purpose. And thus you are subject to the sufferings of the cycle of karmic existence endlessly, drifting and floating in the ocean of life and death. As all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are able to visualize their minds for mind training, they can cross the ocean of life and death to reach the other shore, that is, they can enter the Dharma realm. The Tathagatas of the 3 times all practiced their holy Dharma in this way. That is, all Buddhas of the past, present, and future worlds use this method in their Dharma practices to attain Buddhahood. This explains that one must visualize their mind. What is mind contemplation, mental visualization? It is to train your nature of the mind first. You ought to train your mind. Mind training is to accommodate all the correct teachings of Buddhist holy Dharma in your mental consciousness, without any deviations, plus visualization, which must include the ones with forms and the ones without forms. Only the two added together can be called mind contemplation, mental visualization. I believe that this famous exoteric Buddhist monk obviously does not live up to his reputation, as he does not even know the basic principles of Buddhism, such as everything comes from the mind, space is unlimited, and there is no limit to size. He even used this principle to challenge esoteric Buddhism's visualization practices. He has no knowledge of Buddhist holy Dharma, yet he dares to question people who know how to practice this method. This is a very big mistake. Then there are bystanders, such as this Dharma believer, who will be affected by him such that their esoteric Buddhist practices are delayed, subsequently causing a delay for them to be successfully saved. This monk will have to bear the retribution for this karma. He will have his share of the evil karma for anyone affected by his every second or minute delay in repenting. He will have his share of responsibility for all those affected. This monk will have to be held accountable. Try to think about it. The monks are so representative that they cannot talk carelessly. Many bystanders will be affected by these people, and lose the opportunity to practice valuable Dharma methods. This is a grave evil karma. It is cutting off people's wisdom roots and quicker path to successful Dharma practice. This is a great evil karma. Therefore, this monk cannot be called a Dharma master. Otherwise, many sentient beings will cut off their wisdom roots and opportunities to practice precious Dharma methods for believing in his words. It is obvious that this monk's views are seriously wrong. Errors in views will not only harm oneself, but also countless sentient beings. So, you must pay attention to your own views. Protect your own views and avoid being affected by any erroneous views or evil thoughts. This shows the importance of views. Hence, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni refers to the Sangha jewels in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra and the Mahayana Sutra of mind-ground contemplation. Many only consider a monk or a nun to be the Sangha jewels, thinking that those who have not undergone pabhaja cannot be regarded as the Sangha jewels. This is absolutely not the case. Lord Buddha Shakyamuni made it very clear in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra and the Mahayana Sutra of mind-ground contemplation. He said, there are several types of Sangha jewels, but there are only two types in regard to whether people can seek refuge. He said that the first type of Sangha jewels is those who do not know the Dharma nature. They can only accept offerings, but not refuge seeking from other people. They do not even know what the Dharma nature and the state of oneness are. For example, they do not know how to explain the Buddhist holy Dharma I have just taught. Then, they cannot be the Sangha jewels that accept refuge seeking from other people. They can only accept offerings. The second type of Sangha jewel is those who know the Dharma nature. Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said that there are only two kinds of Sangha jewels, one who knows the Dharma nature and one who does not. The Sangha jewel who knows the Dharma nature can accept people's refuge seeking. What are the Sangha jewels who know the Dharma nature, as the Lord Buddha referred to? Let me explain it now. One who has undergone pabhaja must observe more than 200 precepts. This only represents one type of the Sangha jewels, not all of them. Whether one can accept refuge seeking from others is not determined by whether one has undergone pabhaja or observed over 200 precepts. It is determined by whether one understands Dharma nature, knows how to practice Dharma nature, and is capable of teaching Dharma nature. Because when you seek refuge from someone, you hope that they are able to teach you how to be liberated from samsara. You do not seek refuge from them because they have undergone pabhaja or observed more than 200 precepts. It depends on their capabilities, not what they have received. So, what do we call those who have not undergone pabhaja, but have aroused their bodhicitta to save sentient beings? According to the Buddhist sutras, they are called the Bodhisattva Sanghas, a type of Sangha jewels. But whether they can accept people's refuge seeking does not depend on whether they have resolved to save sentient beings. Per the above-mentioned rules, it still depends on whether they know what Dharma nature is. The reason that Lord Buddha Shakyamuni instructed so solemnly is because only the Sangha jewels who understand Dharma nature have the ability to understand Buddhist holy Dharma, will not misunderstand Buddhist holy Dharma, and will not mislead sentient beings with distorted Dharma. You can refer to the 45th issue of the Lake of Lotus, The Wisdom in Directing One's Dharma Practice, which mentions the Sangha jewels. Hence, there are 4 steps: view, practice, conduct, and fruition. If one's view is wrong, it is impossible for one to proceed to the next steps. All the above mentioned are correct views that you must remember. If the view is biased, all Dharma practices will lead to failure. If your views deviate, the result is not just as simple as a failure in your Dharma practice. It will cause you to fall into the 3 lower realms, hells, hungry ghosts, and animals. As explained earlier, even if you can reach the formless realm, you will still fall to the realms of hungry ghosts, hells, or animals. So, these questions must be answered carefully and solemnly. The reason I spent a few lectures, 3 hours each, to explain it is because it is way too important. As for practice and conduct, one may still be able to hold on when practicing rituals during a formal meditation session. Nonetheless, the post-meditational Dharma practice in daily life is the more difficult step. The Bardo state after death, however, is similar to daily life, which is more difficult for one to hold on to. Therefore, how do we practice the 2 oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra in daily life? They are, first, should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions. Second, not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind. We will explain it in detail in the future. Today is the 20th session. I have explained how the oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra, not to abide anywhere to develop one's mind, can be applied to the states of bliss, luminosity, and no thought. That's all for today.